presented by Bellevue Berry and Pumpkin Ranch from the KETV Newswatch 7 Weather Center on 1620 The Zone.
Partly cloudy skies throughout much of the day Saturday, warm and breezy with high fire danger continuing. High this afternoon in Omaha, 78 degrees with southerly gusts possible up to 20 miles an hour. Skies become mostly clear tonight, breezy early, mild with a low of 53. I'm meteorologist Caitlin Harvey with KETV Newswatch 7.
1620 The Zone Traffic.
From the Pyramid Roofing Time-Saving Traffic Center. Good morning. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. It's a quiet start to this Monday morning. There's no accidents or delays to report in the Omaha Metro. Your morning commute should be smooth sailing as of right now, but once that changes, I'll keep you updated throughout the rest of the morning once traffic starts picking up. Be sure to buckle up and drive safe out there. I'm Joey Colbert.
This time-saving traffic is brought to you by Saul's Jewelry and Loan.
Saul's Jewelry and Loan at 72nd and Maple is our Benson location. It's Northwest and North Omaha's home for amazing prices on jewelry, tools, bikes, guitars. Anything that you're looking for, as well as cash-on-the-spot loans right in the store. Come see us at Saul's, 72nd and Maple.
Host is roasting every morning. Host is roasting every day.
Host Coffee is on a mission to invigorate every workplace with a blend of bold flavors and unforgettable service, creating moments with our coffee, water, and food services that spark joy, productivity, and connection. Call Host Coffee today.
Proudly serving Nebraska since 1972. Host Coffee is always roasting something good for you.
Looking for the right truck for your business? Then it has to be a new Ford Super Duty, the 2024 North American Truck of the Year. Rated America's #1 heavy-duty truck for dependability and driver satisfaction by J.D. Power. Shop hundreds of new Ford Super Duty and F-150 models now and see all our incentives at BaxterFord.com. At Baxter Ford, we won't sell you a car. We'll help you buy one. No handoffs, no hassles, and no hidden fees. Upgrade your work truck now to a new Super Duty from Baxter Ford.
I'm Red Lewis with NFL Network Now on the Westwood One Radio Network. The Chiefs moved to 6-0, beating the Niners 28-18 in a rematch of Super Bowl 58. Jared Goff threw 2 touchdowns as the Lions rallied to beat the Vikings 31-29. Detroit and Minnesota now both 5-1. Packers now 5-2 after Brandon McManus hit a 45-yard game-winning field goal to beat the Texans 24-22. Houston, Saquon Barkley ran for 176 yards and a touchdown in his return to the Meadowlands as the Eagles dominated the Giants 28-3. The Bills beat the Titans 34-10. Amari Cooper with a touchdown in his Buffalo debut. The Bengals won 21-14 in Cleveland. Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson feared to have suffered a torn Achilles, according to NFL insider Ian Rappaport. James Daniels left with a rib injury, but the Commanders rolled 40-7 over the Panthers. And on Sunday Night Football, the Steelers beat the Jets 37-15 in Russell Wilson's Steelers debut. He threw 2 touchdowns and ran for another. This has been NFL Network Now on the Westwood One Radio Network.
All right, when it comes to getting life insurance for your family, a lot of excuses can get in the way. But ask yourself this. If something were to happen to me, who would pay the mortgage, the kids' education, and the other bills? Then forget the excuses and check out Ethos Life, the online, easy way to get life insurance in 10 minutes. Ethos has rates that you can afford, like a $500,000 policy for a 40-year-old male starting at $1 a day or $30 a month with a few health questions and no medical exam. Get your free quote right now at checkethos.com. That's checkethos.com. Not available in all states. Rates do vary.
All right, gentlemen, this is Emmett Smith on behalf of Depend, and I've got the perfect play. Run straight to your doctor's office for a life-changing catch. Because when prostate cancer is caught early, it's up to 99% treatable, and 1 blood test might be all it takes. And now through November, Depend is donating to the Prostate Cancer Foundation for select purchases. Talk about a great play.
From September 1st to November 30th, Depend is donating 40 cents to the Prostate Cancer Foundation for Depend Shield Guards Real Fit products purchased in the U.S. up to a maximum of $300,000 void in Mississippi.
Listen to 1620 The Zone, weekdays for the Big Red Practice Report, presented by Tickets for Less. Visit ticketsforless.com and use promo code The Zone to score incredible savings for your favorite team. It's the Big Red Practice Report, brought to you by Tickets for Less.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hi, I'm Dr. Peter Stahl, board-certified urologist and senior vice president of men's sexual health at HIMSS. In my 12 years of practice as a reproductive urologist, I've helped many guys with ED, and it has never been more convenient to treat than it is right now, thanks to HIMSS. It really wasn't easy before. You had to take time out of your day, come to a physical office and see a specialist like me in person. Now, through HIMS.com, you can get world-class sexual health care and a full range of treatment options for ED through a 100% online process. It starts with a free assessment from a medical provider licensed in your state who can determine if ED treatment is right for you. If prescribed, your medication is shipped to you for free. So don't wait. Join the hundreds of thousands of guys who've gotten help for their ED through HIMS.
To start your free online visit and find ED treatment at up to 95% off brand name prices, go to hims.com/radio. That's hims.com/radio for your free online visit.
Husker Preview Monday is powered by McInnes Roofing and Sheet Metal, Nebraska and Iowa's go-to choice since 1981. Roofing, siding, windows, gutters, sheet metal, or repairs. Their team delivers quality you can rely on. For commercial or residential projects, trust McInnes Roofing and Sheet Metal. Visit McInnesInc.com.
1620 The Zone.
3rd and 9 for the 15. Late third quarter. All Indiana right now, 35-7. In motion, Ellison back in the backfield. Back to throw. Jackson throwing for the end zone. The pass is caught. I think touchdown Indiana. Yep. Arms are in the air. Surratt beat the coverage on the near boundary. We lost view of him as he goes down to that corner. But Indiana tacks on 6 more, and they are over 40 points again this season. That makes 6 straight games their offense has put up over 40 points. 6:17 left. This one no longer a doubt. 49-7 Hoosiers. Shotgun look. Ives the back. Snap back. Flip it over the middle. Deflected. Picked off. A deflected ball at the line of scrimmage. Intercepted, the 3rd INT of the game as Hardy makes the pick. The true freshman for Indiana. Now they're in business at the 21-yard line. The 3rd INT thrown today by Dillon on a day that's going to be forgettable for Husker fans. This will be one you want to just burn the tape.
I'll be curious to see what they pick and choose to go back and revisit. It's always a fine line.
Mm-hmm. Green's the back. Jackson awaits the snap. Puts it off to Green. Left side. Touchdown, Indiana. And the Hoosiers over 50 on the Nebraska Black Shirts. I am baffled.
Yeah, stunned.
Folks, it's hard to put into words the job that Cignetti has done. This is a program with no history. None.
None.
And in 1 year, he's got this thing into the top 15.
Not a lot of people listening to us that know who Bill Mallory was.
Very few. Another kneel down. One more of those, and we'll put this one in the books. Thank goodness.
I do believe with all my heart, I believe that in games like this, there's a ton of lessons and a ton of opportunities. And so, getting out there offensively and trying to drive the ball, or defensively, playing some of the young players, you give guys a chance to get reps, versus a really good team. But I just think that I thought they had our number today. And again, that's the part that really infuriates me as the head coach. People are going to point at this person, everything should be pointed right at me. I usually can see things coming. And I'll tell you right now, I did not see this coming. And we just weren't able to really get anything done on all 3 sides of the ball today. So very, very, very disappointing. I appreciate all the fans that came here. I appreciate everyone that supports us. And, this was certainly not good enough by any stretch. And for that, I'm sorry.
Live from 50th and Capitol Avenue in the Big O. This is Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com, and 1620 The Zone TV. Now here's Gary, Nick, and Jimmy.
I just got 3 things to say. God bless our troops. God bless America. And gentlemen, start your engine!
Good Monday morning. How are we doing? The World Series is set, and it's going to be a banger of a World Series with the Dodgers and the Yankees playing. Why are you guys looking at me like that?
83 today, 82 tomorrow.
There was a moment.
Oh, because you're a Guardian fan.
Yeah,
I get it.
There was a moment Saturday night that I did say,
why did you pitch to Stanton? Oh. Geez, bullpen gymnastics going on in the LCSs, and you pitched to Stanton? You pitched to Stanton!
I pitched to Gleyber Torres, too, who wrecked the Guardians. Oh, yeah.
You caught the kickoff and stepped out of bounds to the one.
Oh, they all relate. At one point for an hour now, I know I'll come back down on Friday and end up watching, but I said, I'm not even going to watch the World Series.
You know, you get that moment when
Dad used to say that. Never fall.
That was such a painful series because it was the old taking the carpet, just sweeping it from underneath you. Because Friday I'm driving home from hockey. Now
I don't bad weekend.
It was awful.
I mean,
it was awful.
I'm fortunate that the Chiefs, the defensive-minded Chiefs, won yesterday.
Yeah, good game by the way. Good job. If the Bears would have played yesterday, I'm sure they would have gotten shellacked because that's just how my weekend went.
Do not apologize for winning.
No. Hell no.
Winning is good.
Oh boy,
losing bad. Winning good.
Could we apply that to just about everything that I'm sure we'll talk about today? Coming back from the hockey game on Friday, after what was like, hey, they were winning, and then they lost. I was in the I typically do the Taco Bell late night run coming back from hockey.
Lost your appetite or had twice the appetite?
No, this was when I'm in the middle of it.
How was Saturday morning?
As you'd expect.
TMI.
I had the phone. I don't like to do this, but I had the phone right there up on the dashboard. So I was watching more than anything, listening to the game as I was driving though. But I just had it on. So every once in a while I could glance over when Rizzo mishandles the ball over at first base. I'm like, oh my God, they're going to pull this off again. Is there something happening here in Cleveland? The Jacobs Field magic. And then, what happened that night? And then Saturday, similar thing. Oh, they're up 2-0. And then all of a sudden, as I knew I would during the game, when I had my attention to the hockey game and not the actual baseball game, I get a text from a buddy who is a big Red Sox fan who simply had one word, and that started with an F and ended with a K. Like, so this can't be good. So immediately I look over at my phone and I see that they're
old school guys who went folk.
Yeah. There you go.
Folk.
Yeah. And I look over and I see the Stanton home run. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
Good night,
and then,
everybody.
of course, the way that it
Did you feel like becoming a Texas fan at that point and throwing stuff onto the street?
Well, hey, if you do that, sometimes things work out to your advantage when you can delay the game like that.
What a joke.
The reversal or the Texas fans? Or both?
All the above.
Yes.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome in on a Monday. It's a reaction Monday. It can be an extension of Big Red Overreaction. Well, that's the thing. Like, after a day like Saturday in Bloomington, when you have to do that show, and by the way, people are lucky enough they get both you and I for the Ohio State game.
You bet.
I can't wait. I might sleep extra this week just to prepare myself. But when you do a show like that, and we went 3 hours on Saturday, then you have to come back in on Monday and talk about it.
You talked out on it?
No, I'm here. I'm going to start this off. I'm going to be a tone setter.
Yeah.
Okay. Some like to say that I'm a trend setter, like the quarter zip and the shorts, all the way through winter, like a trend setter.
Yeah. So far, so good.
Oh, it's beautiful outside. It's really, really nice.
T-shirt weather today.
Nice.
In this political season, where on Tuesday we are 2 weeks away from the election. Good luck to everybody out there. I stand with Matt Rule.
Are you apologizing
for what?
No, I mean, you stand with Matt Rule.
I stand with Matt Rule because I am with him. I didn't see Saturday coming. And I said it on Big Red Overreaction. I said it yesterday on the Average Joe Sports Show live show. You can lose to Indiana because Indiana is a good football team. Okay, they may be knocking on the door of a playoff, but they're a good football team that when they execute at a high level with precision, and they've got the swag of their head coach, who when they show him on television, when Indiana is up 42-7 on Saturday and he looks pissed off, okay, that's a terrible sign for the rest of the Big Ten. That's a great sign for Indiana.
Yeah.
You can lose to Indiana because that's what competition is. Some days, you know what? They're better than you, and you tip your cap. You cannot, in year 2, 19 games in, off of a bye, present that happened in Bloomington and get beat 56-7. I didn't see it coming. I can't believe that anybody saw 56-7 coming. I had the scary dream. I said 41-13.
Yeah.
But it was a dream. That's what dreams are.
That would have been closer.
I thought you said 48-13.
That's 41.
I said 41-13.
Okay.
So I said 41-13, and Indiana will expose some things that are already true, that Nebraska does not have a dearth of skill talent, and across-the-board speed is going to be exposed. You can lose to Indiana. You can't lose 56-7 off of a bye week.
Yep.
Indiana was 49 points better than you on a Saturday. That can't happen. But I'm with him on I didn't see it coming. and then to double down. And this is where I'm still shook. That game was 2 days ago. Is there's a disconnect between Rhule's vibe of his team during the week and then what happens on Saturday. And then there's a disconnect on what he wants to do offensively and what is actually presented on Saturday. There is something off. And if he says, I thought we were going to play great, and you get that, oh man. Because there's a lot of, and I got this for things I said. People are like, well, the sky's not falling. I'm here to tell you, there's a lot of things that I like about what Matt Rhule has said and done, and I can see, but I have to wake up on Monday morning and talk to all of you and on this show, and we may have to discuss that the reality of where Nebraska football was on display on Saturday. You just played a good team, and the two good teams that you played, they did that to you. But I'm with Matt Rhule. I stand with Matt Rhule on I didn't see it coming. And I know people want to assess blame and stuff. And listen, they were out everything. It was a horrible day at the office. It was a total collapse. And the response is the thing that I'm watching now. I'd like to move on quickly from this game, but this game's going to linger for a bit. I mean, you could have some goodwill in the back end, but this game will linger either for the good or the bad. So I want to see what the response is this week against Ohio State. But man, that was a bad day to have a bad day.
Well, and I said this throughout the week last week of more than anything what I wanted to see. I mean, we could go into, hey, this individual, we want to see them do this, or we want to see the running game be able to have this, or all those things. And now it seems like a moot point. But more than anything, you kind of alluded to it right there too, that probably bugged me the most is that Indiana took advantage of the bye week. What did Nebraska do during the bye week? Because that was just
Nick, you know what happened? Indiana scouted Nebraska better than Nebraska scouted themselves.
Scouted Nebraska. Yeah, absolutely.
Indiana ran some stuff that Rutgers ran.
Yep.
And they had a quarterback that could complete those passes. Yeah. Just
100%.
Indiana scouted Nebraska better than Nebraska scouted themselves during the bye.
Yeah, that is a great way to say it, because I'm watching Curtis Rourke, and what have we always talked about? What kind of bugs this defense is quick passing game, RPO, and almost to the point that the RPO freaked. I mean, Curt Cignetti said it as much after the game of how much that RPO affected that defense, and they knew that they could expose some things. But I think when people think of the quick passing game too, they think of, okay, a lot of dinking and dunking, which there's some of that, but also the one-on-one matchups, the back shoulders. I mean, it just became an onslaught of big play after big play after big play. But at the end of all of it, I mean, hell, even after the first quarter, where I don't know how many people felt, and I was listening to you guys talking during Big Red Overreaction, I was right there with you, and you said game was probably over after Dante Dowdell fumbles. Yeah, I was right there with you.
So the game was teetering after Barney stepped out at the one.
Yeah. That's an auspicious way to begin the game, considering.
Especially when your defense, which you trusted and you were relying on to help you win that football game. They were going to be the reason you won that football game, because your offense is what your offense is.
Right.
But you thought defense is going to be the one that's going to keep us in the game, and we're going to get a break because we're not turning the ball over, and something's going to go our way for the first time.
Yeah.
And then when the defense gets gashed and all of a sudden the poor tackling comes out on the opening drive, and Indiana puts it in the end zone, but Nick, via the run, which is the first time this year, and you get a little glimpse of guys like, the Illinois game. One thing that bugged me about the Illinois game is there were some veteran guys on defense that stood in the end zone after an early touchdown and looked at each other.
Yeah, hands out.
So you had that happen on the opening drive, and then Barney catches the ball at the one and steps out of bounds, and I thought, oh boy, they're teetering. Then the Dowdell fumble. I thought the game was over after that. And then when the game is actually over, you hear Curt Cignetti say, we broke their will, but he kind of knew
their pregame
that all you had to do was punch Nebraska, and Nebraska wouldn't respond.
And that's a scary thing right there, Gary. That's the other thing about.
Yeah, there's a lot of tells on Saturday that, I mean, we're going to have to have some. We're going to have some truth. There's some good truth. There's some bad truth. There's some scary truth. That's one of those games where you say don't overreact to it. Well, I think you learn a lot about yourself in that game and then what you do with the results of that game.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the thing that I said 31-28. I'm silly. Sometimes I say crazy things because I thought the offense would actually score 28 points.
That'd be a good game.
But the preparation, more than anything, thinking a good game. And first and foremost, respect Indiana because, damn, that is a good team. That is a good team. They're led by a coach. He sets a tone. They follow it. That is to a T. That is a good outfit right there. I can't take anything away from them. But a lot of this, like you just said, you lose that game. But if it's a game where at least Nebraska in the phases, especially an area that Matt Rule was promoting throughout the week of he expects to be better in special teams, all of that. This did not look like a prepared team. This looked like a team that was coming off the end of an 8-game stretch where they needed a bye week, not coming off of the bye
getaway
week.
day.
Great point.
And so that was the most disappointing thing. Some of the things that were said, you guys did a good job of illustrating this on Big Red Overreaction on Saturday. The fact that Matt Rule is having to apologize to the fan base, and I'm not saying he shouldn't have, but then also the Jamari Butler conversation of their mindset after a big play. And that's the side of the football. And I said this on Friday. If there's one thing I trust going into this game, 2 elements, defense and 15. I hear someone on the defense that plays a prominent role in the defense say that's scary, man. That is scary. That is not a good spot right there.
Yeah, there were actions and words that don't match, that are very uncomfortable right now. And I don't know that the program is to the point of being comfortable, being uncomfortable, which if you can get to that level, boy, you got some cooking with peanut oil. But just whether it be a player who's a younger player, it's not like he's one of the older guys that is like, here we go again. After you fall behind 7-0 and the 52,000 seat stadium is rocking, you have a relatively a contributor who's a younger guy saying, when things start to go, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, when things start to go bad, our confidence goes down, or we drop our head, or, I just got the woe is me out of that. And I'm like, that's unsettling.
Yeah.
Because that's something that you have fought every single day to try and overcome that has lingered around this program for a while. The older guys, we would go, yeah. But when a younger guy says that, you go,
Right.
But then there's, and I've got them all, and offense is going to be a big discussion. I know defense has got to have some discussion as well, because now I have to step back, and a guy who I respect and I think is really good at his job, but then I have to go, man, Tony White, 2 games, 2 dynamic offenses in his career at Nebraska that both run and pass the ball have not been good.
Run and pass,
so we need to go, hey, it's not just a Marcus Satterfield discussion. It's what happens in these kind of games with the defense where they revert to old Nebraska, where you're going for the turnover and not the tackle and just looking unprepared, because I know that they're not. But what happens on Saturday? Then I had to go back and I was like, remember when Rule said, stopped the open scrimmage back in August and said, what are you guys doing when there's people watching?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So the people don't watch Monday through Thursday. They watch on Saturday. I mean, there's just, when you have a game like this, there's a lot of stuff that probably the truth comes out and you've run away from it for a while. Now you have to figure out, are you an enigma? Is that just a one-off? Where are you at? So that's why I'm big now, trying to move away from what happened in Bloomington, is what is the response? Because all week long, people are going to tell you that Ohio State is going to kill you. Okay? That they're going to just run it up on you. Interesting. The line is only 25.5. Somebody
right.
just drove off the road. They're like, but 25.5. And I saw SP Plus says it like 33-11. Bill Connolly yesterday had 33-11. But all week long, people are like, Ohio State's going to run you out of the building. Well, what do your actions look like when you get to Columbus a week after getting your butt kicked by Indiana, 56-7?
And my biggest go-to when it comes to this football program is, how do you change the narrative? And that narrative could not have been more obvious again, as unfortunately it's been in the past few seasons too. And that is, that breaking point of a game where you can see it happening. And we mentioned the Dante Dowdell part of it, but where things happen, you're just like, oh my gosh, this could not get off to more of a disastrous start. Okay, but at one point, this is a 14-7 football game too. What's your response in those moments as well? And then what happened right after Nebraska cut that lead in a half? They get absolutely gouged defensively. So any part of getting back into that football game right there, even at 14-7, was gone. Somebody was asking me this question, and I want to get your thoughts on this too, because we keep talking about the anomaly. Like what was the Nebraska all week last week was, can Illinois be the anomaly?
No, I think Nebraska is who they are.
I think you're right.
I'm not going to back away from that, because by the time you get to week 8 of the season, that essentially is who you are. I think we got to be honest, everybody. This is who Nebraska football is.
Well, could you say this then? Because I still have visions of this as well. And this is where I think I, again, put a lot of, starting with the defense, I put a lot of my confidence into that. I look at that in the way that Nebraska game played out against Colorado. And somebody had brought that up to me, and I said, you know what, maybe that's the anomaly, because that was just a pissed off team that emotionally was charged up for that game. And they look the part. It pisses people off because you see them go to that level, and then you see what Colorado is doing right now. Colorado is a much better team right now.
Yeah.
So you look at those two things and say, were they just pushed to the point, and it was the perfect storm? They're at home. It was a night game, and they just couldn't be beat because of Colorado and how much they're pissed. And then you mentioned a very important part of that too, a dynamic offense that's more one-sided. They don't run the ball well. Okay, if Colorado runs the ball well, okay, maybe we're having a different conversation. But more than anything, Nebraska was so determined to win that game going all the way back to February. Was that just because they put it all out there, but they don't have that? That's more the anomaly?
Yeah. I mean, did Nebraska play their Super Bowl in week 2?
That's the question I'm asking too. And right now, all signs point to, yeah, they might have. They just might have.
Because they haven't been able to get back to that first half level.
Nope.
Especially on one side of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And Colorado has improved since that game. Nebraska's kind of been the same. I mean, we just might have to have just some truth. There's some good things that have happened in this program from this time last year, but we may, when you have a game like that, it wasn't like, oh man, there are just some bad things that went our way. Nebraska got their butt kicked. They got their butt kicked. Indiana is a good team. They are a really good team. I think we established that right away last Monday, that don't overlook Indiana. Indiana is a good team that they want to find out if they, where they're at. Mm-hmm. Well, they found out that, man, they might be a playoff team. Who knows what could happen? But Indiana's not supposed to be 49 points better than Nebraska off a bye week.
Yep.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah. If that game plays out the way that it does, there needs to be some outliers, some circumstances that would indicate as such that I don't even want to say that it would ever be acceptable. But like I mentioned, you're coming off of a 7 or 8 game stretch. You've got some key injuries, and there was no holding the flood back. It was just going to happen. When you're coming off of a bye week, relatively healthy too. That's the other part, relatively healthy. And that's what it looks like. And it's not like it was a cumulative effect of where it all just came crashing down in the fourth quarter. This was in the first quarter. I mean, this was right out of the gate.
You ran into a buzzsaw and you had bad football, but is that who you are? I mean, that's the thing that has to be answered, because stuff that was said after the game, you go, well, maybe it is.
And if that's who you are, the remainder of the schedule leads you to believe what, when this season ends, of what this will look like, where this team will be. I still think they're getting to a bowl game, but talked about this on Friday a little bit. What's the ceiling now? Yeah, and maybe we shouldn't even have that conversation yet, because I like where your head is as far as the response, because I think that's twofold on response. I think there has to be an in-season response, and that's going to be how these guys prepare. This is about the players as well as the coaches, but also then there's the long-term response of everything that's happened, unless we're just completely off and all of a sudden, that finally just lit a fire under their ass and they turn things around, which I'm not there. What's the long-term response when it comes to managing personnel, how you want to get guys in? We could talk red shirts. We could talk a lot of that, but coaching staff, Satterfield, Foley, all that stuff. That's the long-term response that we won't obviously see until we get to December.
All right, more of all of you, less of us, or less of me. I'll let Nick talk all the time. You can join us. You can join us on the 42-degree. You know what? So people are like, "Hey, thoughts and prayers." We're lucky
For
enough.
the show.
We are lucky enough that
You're getting some
people
T's and P's.
That people still care.
Yeah.
Okay, that we could go 3 hours after a game like that. And here's a little bit of an unsettling thing. And maybe it was because of the tone that Austin and I set on Big Red Overreaction. It wasn't just pure anger. Maybe because the game was over early. There wasn't like a lot of people angry. They were disgusted. They were a little surprised. I don't know. What's the word I'm looking for? Resigned to that's where Nebraska football is. So when people go, "Hey, thoughts and prayers," well, thank you, but I didn't play the game, and it's just that's what we do. And so I'm not like, "Oh my God, look what's going to happen against Ohio State." We're going to do this again.
Yeah.
I actually can't wait for the Ohio State game. Because I want to see how they respond. Yeah. I'm not saying, "Whoa, watch out, America," but this next Saturday is all about Nebraska to me. I'm going to watch Nebraska. They're going to play a team that's really friggin' good.
Yep.
This next week is all about watching just Nebraska on how they respond. I don't think they're going to change their stripes completely overnight, but the response in the effort and looking like they're prepared to play football, because they didn't look like they were prepared.
Yeah.
This is a bye week. They had time to get ready. They knew this game was a ranked team on the road, things they could do, opportunity, big stage. And once again, it happened. All right, the 42-degree The Source hotline by your mom's house is open for you, 402-951-1620. Lots of emails. I'm still catching up from Saturday's show in the Equitable Bank inbox. Gary at 1620thezone.com.
Handley at 1620thezone.
Also on the JTech Construction Zone Twitter feed. We'll play on Twitter today at Gary Sharp 1620.
And Nick Handley 1620.
Let's start with Andy. He was first in this morning. Good morning, Andy. Welcome to Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone. Oh no. This is not a good start. This is like catching the ball at the 1 yard line and stepping out of bounds, or letting two kickoffs in the second half bounce in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Or
just muffs.
We're at a point of no return with special teams, right? We don't want to.
So this is what they are.
I don't know how much. I don't know how much longer I have on this earth. I don't want to. I don't want to waste brain cells on the special teams because they are what they are, and I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm resigned. There's my thing again. I'm resigned to the fact that this is just an abomination.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one thing after another. And it seems like it's like contagious.
Yeah.
One bad special teams play leads to another, leads to another. I mean, Buschini had a 52-yard punt.
Yeah.
And it got returned 20 yards. Then there was a low snap and he punted it 25.
Yep. You get the low snap again. Then you just get something that didn't even happen in special teams, but speaks volumes, is you not even once thought about a 30-yard field goal. Not even once.
Well, so let me we'll take Brian here in just a second. Let me throw this out there for everybody because I'm curious. They've John Hull is your place kicker going forward for the rest of the year.
Yep.
Have they just decided that he gets to kick off and we're not going to do anything? Because I would have thought, I'm not a coach, just a gut, and I don't know what the mindset is of going for 7 instead of 3. But did anybody else think that when it was 49-7, Nebraska was kind of in field goal range, that maybe that would have been an opportunity to run John Hull out there?
Yeah, see what the leg looks like in a stadium, in an actual game competition, not during practice. Just any opportunity that you can allow him to watch the ball travel through the uprights in competition. I don't even care what part of the game it is.
All right, here is Brian. Brian, you get to start off the Monday on the Zone. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Oh, just trying to
let it out
here and dissect the loss. A longtime Husker fan. You know, I've been going to games since I was a kid. So, you know, I mean, I was there during the good times. But just where I'm going on this is, I don't know. This one kind of took the cake with me. Meaning, I don't know why we continually see this happening. It's just crazy to me. I don't see other programs going through stuff like this. It's crazy. I don't know if something internally is going on up there. Makes me almost think there has to be something behind the scenes that nobody else is talking about. What that is, I don't know. Maybe I'm totally off base, but I won't be watching Saturday. It doesn't even hurt anymore when they lose because it's crazy. It's crazy. It's Indiana. 49 points.
Hey, Brian, can I ask you this? Because I hear you. Wasn't this year supposed to be the year that, like you said, you expect this to happen? Wasn't this the year to kind of change those expectations a little bit to where, hey, you actually got excited, especially in big games, that there was going to be not only a puncher's chance, but there was going to be an occasional win against one of those types of teams?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I thought we would lose going in, but I didn't think we'd get blown out.
No.
I didn't think we'd win Saturday, but I didn't think we'd get blown out.
Yeah. I'm right there with you, Brian. Brian, thanks for the phone call. You can lose to Indiana. It's a game. It's competition. Indiana's a good team. They beat you. Tip your cap. Shake their hand. Get on the plane. Come home. You can't lose 56-7 in the manner in which it happened, where all three phases didn't get on a plane to go to Bloomington. And essentially just listening afterwards, Kurt Cignetti's an ass. But I would play for him.
He's Bo, man.
I would like him as your head coach.
You say he's Bo?
He's Bo.
Yeah.
I listen to him talking. I'm like, that is a little bit better CEO Bo.
And hey, he got some swag, and his mouth is writing checks, and his football team is cashing them.
Mm-hmm.
So he's at a point now, because game day is going to be there this weekend.
Without a starting
He is talking. I don't know what jarred me more, hearing Matt Rule talk afterwards and the disconnect on what he wants to do on offense and what is not being done, or Kurt Cignetti basically telling you everything about Nebraska that we either kind of already know but don't want to say it out loud, or was pretty evident on Saturday.
Yeah.
It's one of those games. I mean, I know Matt Rule said after the game, at the end of the day, it's just a loss. You can by your response, you can still stick with that. But 56-7. When does 56-7 stop happening?
Mm-hmm.
All right. You know the numbers, you know the access, you know the players that are here with you. Mike and Gary, stay right there. We'll get to you when we return. Jimmy got an update after 7 again. The World Series is set. It's going to be a magnificent World Series. Yankees, Dodgers. Has nothing to do with your team.
I'm sure it will be fine. I'm actually looking forward to Ohtani in the World Series as well.
Ohtani,
give me
Judge,
7 games.
Yeah.
Ohtani,
Please.
Judge, and 3-run Ding Dong Johnson. It's Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone. Wow. What are we doing here?
It's Monday.
Kick up the leaves, and what did he say? I don't remember. I used to play this song once upon a time when I did a DJ thing. But we all know the main part of it. Well, that's not it.
No, bad edit on you.
Yeah.
All right, back to the 42 Degree The Source hotline.
It was a
We
bad day.
go on Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Here is Gary. Hello, Gary.
Hey, buddy. How's it going?
That's going great.
Oh,
And I mean that truly.
How's the golf game?
I haven't been able to get out. I'm in the middle of a little busy time here, so.
Well, this game this weekend feels like the guy that got penalized 4 strokes after he got done with his PGA round of golf. And then yesterday, I thought I could calm down. And I thought, well, this guy that 5-putted in a tournament on the senior tour from 10 feet. I thought, wow, this kind of brings back what happened Saturday.
Okay.
Just never thought it would happen. 4-stroke penalty after your round's over, and a guy couldn't make a putt 5 times in 10 feet. But we all got laundry baskets for dirty clothes, don't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where are we going?
Put those damn black shirts in the dirty clothes basket and don't use them and don't bring them out for a whole nother season.
Do you wash them?
Nope.
Okay.
You don't put them on. They're
Stinky.
done. They're done.
Gary?
Until next fall. Thanks, guys. Love your show.
Thanks, Gary.
You know one thing, and this is great on our listeners to Big Red Overreaction. Do you know not once on Saturday anybody brought up the uniforms?
It was that bad. Well,
they just forgot because it was so much material.
I saw it sprinkled in there a little bit in people's frustration, but yeah, it ended up getting to the point of, okay, let's have an actual real conversation about this and not the surrender whites.
I did not have it on my bingo card that Mickey Joseph Trev Alberts would be brought up before the white uniforms on Saturday. Good morning, Mike. Welcome to Mornings with Sharp and Hanley on the Zone.
Good morning, Gary. How are you?
Good, Mike. Uh-oh. I'm sensing your voice. Let it rip.
You told me to call you
after
October, but I just can't wait that long.
Okay,
Sorry, man.
that's fine.
What bothers me more than anything is I have nothing earth-shattering by any means. Same thing everybody else got. Everybody knows Foley sucks. But what's going to happen? What's going to happen? I mean, I'm not a big fan of Uncle Donnie. The offensive line is the same. You know, I'm not a big fan of Sat. I've got family from South Carolina that did cartwheels when they let him go or when he was gone. And we run the same 5-6 plays. Everybody says we don't have any speed. Well, Jalen Lloyd, he's a milk carton. We run the same 5-6 plays, and we're just terrible. And the one thing that you did think that I thought we was good at was the defense and the defensive coaches. I was like, yeah, pretty good. But I just wonder, did the Big Ten see the 3-5 now? Watch the film on the 3-5 now? Is is it going to work in the Big Ten? I guess I don't have anything that nobody else didn't already know. Everybody else does the same thing.
Yeah. So let me ask you, Mike. The offense, I don't know if Nebraska's running Matt Rule's offense or Marcus Satterfield's offense, because there is a major disconnect on what Rule wants the identity to be and what actually is happening.
Mm-hmm.
So is it less startling if we say, man, the scheme might be the problem on both sides of the ball, or Nebraska doesn't have enough dudes? They have good. They have good guys who play hard and will make some plays, but they don't have enough guys above those good dudes that say, "Not today, my friend." And when plays need to be made, guys make plays.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's some Jimmy and Joes. I think we get excited over, the few big guys, the big star guys or whatever that we do get. Hey, Dylan's a freshman, man, and he's good. He's good. He's a little slow of foot, but he's good, and he's still making a freshman, and Big Ten defensive coordinators are going to make freshmen look silly. It's just going to happen. But the lack of effort is what's killing me. It was just like, ho-hum. It's like they didn't care, so I didn't care either. I watched Miami and Louisville, You know, I'm
not going to, Mike. I don't think it's they didn't care. I think they were stunned.
No?
I think they were absolutely stunned on how this game unfolded so quickly. And I think that's the head coach on the sidelines. He looked stunned, which was not good. And I mean, come on, now he's gotten 2 unsportsmanlike penalties.
Mm-hmm.
It just when people get squeezed, the truth comes out. And we might have to deal with some hard truths about schematic and personnel that we've been dancing around. Now the offense, we have kind of known this all season long. Now we probably have to take a harder look at the defense, and especially in the back end.
How about answers? Is Matt Rule? Do you think Matt Rule's loyal, or do you think Matt Rule will have to make some changes?
Do you think Matt Rule wants to win?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right
So
now.
I think that answers the question.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I just wondered if he will. All right.
All right.
Thanks, Gary.
Mike.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for the phone call.
I saw this a little bit on Saturday too, on social media as far as the effort. I'm glad you brought that up as far as not thinking that's the case, because I think this group not only completely shell-shocked, which obviously they were, but I'd take it a step further and say, I think you're so desperate to make plays, especially defensively. You brought up the one thing that I would agree with too, of you revert back to some bad habits of why were there so many missed tackles? Because you're trying to punch the ball out. You're trying to do things like that, and all of a sudden you're reverting back to bad habits, and then yards after contact is taking place. And at some point, it can look a little bit more lethargic because you are trying so damn hard looking for the answer and you can't find it, that eventually it does look like, well, where's the give a blank? You know, well, it's there. They're just making so many damn mistakes right now. That's why people want to associate that with, well, they don't care. I get it that's the scoreboard would reflect that. The lack of countering or any type of punchback would reflect that as well. That's the one thing I don't worry about in this. You could be Nebraska, you could be any football program that's in a bad way right now. I'm not going to say, well, they just don't try, because I know that's completely not the case. Sometimes you're trying so damn hard because you can't find the answer that it looks that way.
Yep. Here is Matthew. Matthew, thanks for the call. Welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. Happy Monday morning to y'all.
Happy Monday morning to you.
You too, Matthew.
Hey, I might be one of the exceptions, but I'm excited to see Nebraska play on Saturday. I've been that way since I was 6 years old.
Gary is too.
We may not win, but who cares? Not be a fair weather fan. I'll just get out there, learn what you learn, and keep moving forward.
What do you think they will learn from Saturday going into a more difficult opponent this Saturday?
You just got to hope that they bounce back and look, see what worked, and hang on to the dang ball. Just hopefully just going in, trying to make it something, so that way you don't get embarrassed and you still hold your head up high and be able to say, you know what, we went in there, we lost. Let's get the next week. Let's still get to that 6 win. Then let's get to 7 wins, and just do what you can. It's just like what I do with my 7th grader. We talk about what worked, what didn't work, and we go, all right, let's put this one in the book and let's move on.
Matthew, thanks for the phone call. All right, every Monday after a rough Saturday,
we need Matthew.
Matthew needs to be the first call. Jimmy, go back through caller ID, find out what Matthew's number is, text him and say, after a bad Saturday, we need Matthew to be one of the first guys in.
We might just come show up here.
We might need him a week from today.
Yeah, a week from today. Bring breakfast, coffee. We'll have a good time.
So Nebraska's 5-2, but so is Alabama and Vanderbilt.
There we go.
It feels a little different, but okay.
I mean, I'm trying on the heels of what Matthew said.
Exactly.
Do you guys
still one game away from bowl?
Do you guys believe what I said earlier, that you are who you are by about game 8?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So if that is the case,
you just said game 8.
Game 8 is Saturday in Columbus.
Oh, cool.
Nebraska football is. You guys don't have to answer this. We'll leave this open for our callers, emailers, texters, tweeters. Nebraska is
average.
What they are.
Nebraska is a team with no offensive identity, and then I would say, if we're going to get detailed on this, I think it's fair to have the question about the defense and the Tony White Rand defense. There was a lot of success last year. And hey, I said this on Friday, that if there's one thing I'm confident in, it's just this defense and the way that they can get after it. And for maybe even some things of like lack of speed, I always felt like they make up for being disciplined, assignment sound, which I think if you're a team that maybe lacks certain areas when it comes to just overall physical attributes like speed, that you can make up for that. We have to consider some of the offenses that Tony White last year and even this year have had success against. You brought up a really good point about the RPO, okay? Colorado got dynamic playmakers, but they don't run the football. When you are able to run the football and then throw the ball with a guy like Shedeur Sanders and a Travis Hunter and having those types of receivers, a Horn, when you don't run the football, yeah, you can completely squeeze that team. So it's a fair conversation. I'm not saying that all of a sudden I'm giving up on Tony White, but it's a fair conversation to look at the success that this defense has had with Tony White in 19 games now, to look at that defense and look at the games that they have been very successful. Remember the quarterback play last year with the teams that they were playing and having a lot of success. It was bad. It was not good quarterback play. Teams that have a quarterback that can function the RPO, Curtis Rourke, I think, was the best of all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But even Luke Altmaier, who I wouldn't say is all Big Ten, had a lot of success as well. That, to me, does matter now as we kind of look at the 19-game sample size and say, okay, where have they thrived and where have they really struggled? And it's been some really bad quarterback-led teams that are either one-dimensional or aren't very physical at all that this defense has feasted off of.
I want to get this quote, and then we'll get to Lance to close out the hour. So, the defense has to own what happened. I mean, they were bruised, and certain players in the secondary, like Nebraska's safeties, got exposed. And Nebraska's linebackers, like John Bullock, got washed. It was a bad day at the office, and they had to be able to stop Indiana's run game to give them a chance. They couldn't stop Indiana's run game. And then also, bottom line is the margin of error, kind of what you were saying, Nick, is so small with Nebraska that their dudes, the dudes they do have, those dudes got to make plays.
Yep.
And they didn't have guys making plays. But I want to, on the offensive side, because people are, I see on the stream, people are talking about the disconnect on offense with, I may have thrown them, I might have walked into a fire in a gasoline suit when I said, is this Rule's offense or Satterfield's offense? This is something that was said after the game that I'm still a little shook by. This is Rule. Quote, as it got away from us, we dropped back to get back in the game. We weren't going to win just dropping back and throwing every play. We need to get the run game with it. As the score got away from us, we got away from the game plan offensively. I'm not throwing that on the guys. We have to find better ways to get our guys to play. We want to get in big people, and we wanted to run the ball. We wanted to play action. We wanted to be violent. Dylan loves play action.
Mm-hmm.
All of those things in that last sentence, we want to get in big people, and we want to run the ball. We want to play action. We want to be violent. None of that. Well, some of it, maybe they tried, and guys were not violent.
Yeah.
They didn't run much play action.
No.
They didn't really commit to running the ball. There was one stretch early in the game where I think it was 7 or 8 straight passes.
8, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That can't happen.
Yeah.
So that quote there, that's the head coach. That's the head coach saying that about that offense. That offense that in the last 2 games has averaged 3.9 yards per play. And in what? So 2 straight games in the Big Ten haven't scored in the second half. What is it? Just 7? So if you do the Big Ten games, the 16 quarters, I think they've only scored points in half of them. So
yep.
What is the disconnect between what the head coach wants to run and what the OC is calling? Whether it be, because I think we know, like, wide receivers, they can't get separation. They have the guys. Some guys have little interest in blocking on the perimeter,
yes.
or Nebraska is so predictable that they tip off what they're going to do. So DBs know that the play is coming their way, and they've got to get off a block by a wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
That's also part of it.
Or when you have a quarterback that's trying to make the adjustment and the guy just flat out misses anyway.
Yeah, there's the A is not connecting with B, and so now C can't even get in the game.
Yeah.
It's just a weird, like, that quote, along with the Butler and then Rule saying, I didn't see this coming, are all like 3 main quotes from this game. Do what you will with that, because we need to discuss that more. We will. Ben Audi will join us coming up at 8. Evan Beland, Jacob Bigalow as well. We finished the hour with Lance. Good morning, Lance.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Good.
When I look at the game on Saturday, it starts and ends with offense and special teams for how to fix the issues that we have. when you get behind the 8 ball and you have to start whipping the ball around, and you've shown that you probably don't have the personnel to do it the way at least that you're trying to do, it's going to equal disaster, and then it's going to steamroll and snowball. So I don't get lost in the score because I predict an Indiana win, or I predicted an Indiana win. They were top 10 on offense, top 10 on defense. Anyone that's going to have a conversation today about defense, it should get that Will Smith treatment of keep my defensive coordinator's name out of your mouth, because problems 1 through 8 on this team all have to do with offense and special teams. And so I think I'm starting to see some cracks in the messaging of the Empire. When you talk about the standard as a standard, and you're trying to do the small things right, and then it's just massively bad on offense and special teams. I think we're 125th in red zone offense. We don't score in the second half of ball games, and we don't create big plays. So they have their work cut out for them. I think you just grind like heck to get the 6 wins, and then get to the off season and see what you can do. But as you were just saying a few minutes ago, Gary, it's hard to point to some of the things that they do right that you can hang your hat on and create offense. So I think more of the same.
Yeah. Bulk Dog, thank you. Have a good week.
What does the offense do good?
Well, that's the thing. What is working?
What do they do good?
What they do good?
They create. They're creative because they create conversations like this.
Now you got me riled up here.
I'm sorry.
You know what they do well? We're now in check down mode, which every time they have to go to a check down mode, I see 15. Wish I could be in the head. But what is the fascination with the sideline compared to getting vertical? And then what is the fascination with wide receivers that instead of cutting it back inside, go to the outside? Now, Nebraska's wide receivers usually go down on contact right away.
Right. There's not a lot of yak there.
But why? What's our fascination with the sidelines? So that we can maybe get on SportsCenter with an incredible catch?
Yeah.
So we get a toe tap?
Or at the very least, then you get a PI. No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
It's just so out of sorts. But at the end of the day, Nebraska football moving forward, they need a palate cleanse of this is new. We don't do this here anymore. At the end of the day, and at least they're working on it. And oh, by the way, they got a flip from Jimmy's KU last night. Mm-hmm. 4-star offensive lineman Juju Marks.
How about that?
6'7", 255. He's going to be a tackle. He's going to play on the offensive line. So he commits with a weird quote about they gave me the most money.
He was honest.
Hey,
he was very honest.
Is that real? Is that a real quote?
Oh, yeah.
Is that really?
Yeah.
So he said Nebraska gave him the most money.
And anybody knows the difference in NIL.
But he also added that I think they'll develop me better.
So Nebraska's recruiting follows what the thing that is going to turn Nebraska football around. And that is Nebraska football can't move forward until they're really, really good in the trenches. Offensive line, defensive line match each other. That if Nebraska can't get better there, we're going to be doing this a lot of Saturdays. That's where it starts.
Yep.
They've started to recruit to that to fix some holes, but it's all about the trenches, ma'am. Yep. I would like some points. I don't know if this offense is capable of generating points because they have a ceiling.
Yep.
I mean, sorry to my drink.
Oh my gosh, you almost spilled it.
We're 19 games in. Nebraska's most points they've scored against a Power 4 team is 31 points. How is that possible?
Mm-hmm. In this day and age.
31.
Yep.
They're kind of capped.
Yep.
Okay? They're kind of capped.
Oh, they are.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
There's no kind of about it. They are.
But it's, so to win games, you got to score points. Okay? Mm-hmm. There's nobody has ever won a football game when they haven't scored. I don't think so.
True.
I haven't looked at it.
Yeah, that's true.
I haven't looked at it closely.
I feel like
maybe back in the day. All right, maybe back in the day when they were in Piscataway, New Jersey playing football. way back in the day.
Where it all began.
So you got to score points.
Yeah.
But you got to be really good in the trenches where you can get on a plane and go, man, you know what? If Dylan is off today and his accuracy is not efficient, we know that we're going to be able to run the ball and stop the run.
And that's where that
or at least change the scope of the game where instead of, oh, Jesus, we're in a scoring derby. It's like, no, we're now going to control the tone of the game because we can run the ball and stay on the field.
Yeah. You hear so much about the dominant contact. I don't know if that was more on the defensive side. It needs to be a part of the offensive line too. It's until I see it with my eyes of the line of scrimmage play consistently being better, that when I hear the dominant contact or the violent, whatever they say, the RDV, all that, just words.
Yeah, it's things that are preached, things that are taught, didn't match actions on Saturday.
Right.
A little past, Jimmy's got an update quickly here coming up. We'll get back to calls and we'll sift through some emails and some tweets. And I really want to talk about the World Series.
7 games. Come on.
I mean, you're right. It's what? Okay.
Please.
We'll also talk about the chaotic nature of college football that is going on after Georgia mollywhooped Texas. That was a good day. At least Saturday night.
Oh, good.
Turned out pretty well.
I like that word, by the way, mollywhooped.
A little too close for me, but I wish it
horns
would have
down.
been more of a blowout.
Yeah. Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Jimmy's got an update next on 1620 The Zone.
We've got so much to say. We can only say so much. So let's just start. Creighton Volleyball was number 6 in the NCAA's first in-season rankings of the top 16 teams. This was released yesterday afternoon. They weren't happy about it. They think they should be higher. They were 4th in the RPI through Friday, the cutoff for what is considered to be the rankings. Whatever. They're good. They're still good. Their only 2 losses are 5 setters on the road at Nebraska and Louisville, number 1 and 4 respectively. The top 16 teams host the first weekend of the tournament, with the top 4 in a position to host the second if they advance. Creighton has hosted 5 times, including the past 3 seasons, but has never hosted the second. The Jays took out their anger and improved to 17-2, 8-0 in the conference with a Sunday sweep of DePaul at Sokol Arena. Hey, never mind the black shirts, right? The black shorts took advantage of their time on national TV. Harper Murray had 14 kills, Merritt Beeson added 13, and the Nebraska volleyball team swept Ohio State Saturday for its 15th straight win, a match televised on NBC, the real one, not the Peacock. They'll be back home this Friday and Saturday to host Illinois and Michigan. Separate days, not both teams, although they could be both teams. Rough weekend for my beloved Maverick hockey as Augustana spoils the home opener for Omaha Hockey, beating them 2-1 on Friday and 4-0 on Saturday night. The Yankees and Dodgers will meet in the World Series for the first time since 1981. I do not remember that, but I've seen it on the ESPN Classic. I was not born yet. Fox is thanking the baseball gods after last year's snooze fest that honestly they could have shown on tape delay or public access. New York eliminated Cleveland Saturday night to complete the cauldron of crap in the Handley household. The Dodgers knock out the Mets last night, 10-5. The World Series begins Friday night. Christ, we got to wait all the way till Friday? Well, there's a reason. We have to wait because the MLB fears competing directly against the NFL, so they won't directly compete against them Saturday or Sunday night. So Friday, Saturday, Monday through Wednesday, and then Friday, Saturday. That's how it works. Hey, Steelers country, let's ride. Russell Wilson is back, and the Steelers beat the Jets 37-15. Wave that terrible towel. More football. The Chiefs just ruined happiness for many, and now they can add Brandon Ayuk to that list as the 49ers fear a torn ACL for the receiver in Kansas City's 28-18 win. How about that Chiefs defense, though? They were good. Jaden Daniels hurt a rib in the Washington Commies' 40-7 win over the Panthers. He left early. They didn't need him. The Panthers really suck, and Dan Quinn's Commies will win the NFC East. Amazing what happens when you have a good coach and you have decent players. Anyway, in the karma department, Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson suffered what appears to be a season-ending right Achilles injury. He'll undergo testing for the confirmation after his team's 21-14 loss to the Cincinnati Bengals yesterday. In college football, we can only put so much in here. This thing it can't be too long. The Oklahoma Sooners are not wasting time making a change at offensive coordinator. 7 games into the season, they fire offensive coordinator, former fullback and national champion Seth Luttrell. Oklahoma is moving on from the first-year play caller one day after his offense pooped the bed in a 35-9 home loss to SEC power South Carolina. Hope the SEC money makes them feel better because it's about all they have. And finally, Utah offensive coordinator Andy Ludwig, who had helped the team to consecutive conference championships, has stepped down amid a second season of struggles. Ludwig, in his second stint as Utah's offensive coordinator, had overseen the offense since 2019 after previously working there from 05 to 08. The great Kyle Whittingham did immediately name a replacement. The Utes lost to TCU 13-7 late Saturday night.
You did not help the waters by mentioning the last 2 there.
I know.
That Oklahoma and Utah yesterday relieved their OCs of their duties. So what, East Carolina and Southern Miss moved on from their head coach? Is that what happened this weekend as well? So we're starting because we have not had a Power 4 firing yet as a head coach.
Nope.
Oklahoma's in trouble. They might be the new Nebraska. Transitioning to a new conference. Texas was prepared to go to the SEC. Oklahoma not prepared. And once you start the yo-yo of a quarterback, and you go down a really, really shaky path. So Venables, who by the way has a $45 million buyout.
Yep.
Damn, I need to be a coach.
A lot of Brahms money.
Dude, I need to be an agent for college football coaches with these contracts.
You get a piece of that.
His legacy will be about the other side of the ball. Because defensively, I think they have some really good pieces. But offensively, man, you banked on a couple of young guys and you said, hey, Dylan Gabriel, go and find a new home. But they're 128th in offense at Oklahoma.
Yeah. And for even a head coach that's going to be a defensive-minded coach, it's weird. We're having this conversation about offense with Nebraska, too. At some point, you got to have something, especially in the SEC. You got to put some points in. That's just...
So let's have this discussion, okay? Let's have this discussion about Nebraska's coordinators. I'll include them all. Again, I think we're past no return on special teams. I mean,
you're right, but doesn't that suck that
yes,
we have to accept that the third phase is a dumpster fire, and you just hope that it is the dumpster fire, the fan or the flames of it are at least somewhat neutralized, so where it doesn't spread. It's not a wildfire. They contain the dumpster fire that is the third phase. I mean, that's the hope right now. That's the best you can hope for right now with special teams. But you're right. We're wasting time by just talking about that because it is what it is.
When Ives got tackled by a kicker, I was like, man, you should drop special teams.
Well, it's kind of exciting.
Never have special teams. Just everybody just goes for it on fourth down, offensively, defensively.
Brian Bushini, just throw.
Does Matt Rule, because the one thing you find out in the Big Ten, now this is the next step of evolution, in my opinion, with Matt Rule. We are finding out in terms of building a roster, his mindset. Cignetti comes from a place where he's had success and he can bring guys. Rule was coming from the NFL. Nobody wanted Sam Darnold to come to Nebraska. Okay? If they could have brought Luke Kuechly and Sam Mills, okay, that would have been good.
Well, and at one point he had Christian McCaffrey too.
So. Rule could, coming from the NFL.
Unfortunately.
So
it's a tough sell.
Stephen Davis.
Hey, to each their own on how you're going to build a roster for the long term or the short term. But the one thing, and we'll see, you got to be smart in the portal. And Nebraska, apparently, with the offensive lineman they got to commit yesterday, who that is a true quote that, hey, good on Nebraska. They wanted something. They went out and they bought that.
Mm-hmm.
And they bought it in the trenches.
Mm-hmm.
Trenches. I still can't believe that's a real quote, but it is. It is. People have shared it with me. Thank you.
Yep.
So you learn to play the game on, hey, I've been loyal. Elijah Herbal on our podcast yesterday brought up a great question, and he was sneaky. He dropped it at the end of our show, and then we were done. Will Matt Rule be more loyal to players or coaches? Because as you learn the landscape of a roster building and who can hack it and who can't, you've been here for now 2 years.
Yep.
What do you do? And then what do you do? Because I'm talking players. Like, do you slide some guys that way? Do you reevaluate how much you want to spend instead of retain and reward with your cash? Because Nebraska has resources. Nebraska has resources to get dudes, but they got to have a reason to get dudes, or that dude to come here. And they got resources for coaches. Is do you adjust there? But then on the coaching side of it, with people that are with you every single day, that Matt Rule is an extremely loyal person. Also, Matt Rule doesn't strike me as a panic guy. He strikes me as, if something needs to be done, I'll do it, but I'm not a panic guy. Is you learn quickly in this conference. You got to be good with the main dude. You got to be good with your coordinators, and that includes special teams. This is a really, really good conference full of coaches. And then go beyond that, Nick, position coaches that are not coordinators.
Yeah.
So how does your list of coaches stack up with where you want to go in this league?
Right.
And I think that's an evolution of, okay, I've seen these guys on the front line for 2 years. This is their strength. This is their weakness.
Yep.
We can move. We can do this with them, or we got to get better in this area because that's just not a fit.
And I think to the point of what you just said there, when you hear, and that Saturday wasn't the first time that we heard a little disconnect between
you're true.
offensive
You're
philosophy.
right.
So to me, that's where the focus is, because again, I don't want to make Tony White blameless on this either. Okay. I know that was a popular thing on Saturday of a lot of the old adage, because the offense has been bad for a while, or at least no identity for a while, that everybody was saying, well, the defense, that's a one-off. Let's look at special teams and offense. Well, okay. Yeah. But everybody gets a piece of that blame. But this is something that I think
there are more guys that look developed on the defensive side of the ball than the offensive side of the ball.
I would 100% agree with that too. And this is, what do we say? This is a developmental program. And I'll get to the Cignetti, the 1 year thing, because that was drawing the ire of people too. But going back to the Satterfield Rule relationship, if you will, I think you said this on Saturday, which is an interesting point of, he is at his best when he has elite players. He'd be a good OC when you've got elite wide receivers, when you've got the quarterback, who I think is eventually, I still think Dylan is going to get to that level at some point during these next 3-4 years.
Yeah. Elite wide receivers, because at South Carolina,
SEC speed.
South Carolina was, at this point, it might just be who he is as an offensive coordinator. They had really good wide receivers at South Carolina.
Even a tight end that they would use to handle the football as well. I mean, you just had playmakers. So what do you do when you don't necessarily have that type of talent? And does that knock down all of your offensive principles that that you've built a career of knowing and having to adjust? Like last year, for instance, it was kind of admirable that they played the hand that they were dealt with an option quarterback when he knew no option at all. So you lean on people who knew it, like Ron Brown, for instance. Okay, all right, that was fine. You did what you had to do because you didn't have the guy at quarterback that you thought you had in Sims, which part of the evaluation, right? That's still on your OC and your head coach right there. But this give and take of what I think Matt Rule wants to see this offense be and what Marcus Satterfield ends up pulling off during a game. This is, how Matt Rule talked about, this is one of the quotes you brought up from the open practice where they stopped and, hey, we're not changing who we are. Okay. You got to be on Saturday who you are right now during the week of practice. Okay. That shouldn't change. Isn't that the same for a coach? Because I would think in those meetings that they're all in sync on the game plan. They're looking at Indiana. They're looking at the things that they feel like they can take advantage of. And okay, we feel good. Head coach is checking off on that, is he not? He's got to sign off on that and say, yep, I love this. But then you get into a game and all of a sudden, whether it's your Punxsutawney Phil and you're scared of your own shadow or whatever it is, all of a sudden you abandon that so quickly that you've got the head coach wanting this to happen. But to your point about loyalty, he's not going to completely undercut his offensive coordinator because you also know how that looks to the players as well. But at some point, as bad as that looks from the OC, it's reflective on the head coach. And I don't know how much more Matt Rule wants to put that on his tab, because if people thought Saturday was the most glaring back and forth, or at least disconnect between the head coach and the OC, hell, it's been going on. You've heard him drop subtle things before. I asked, what do they do best? There's a sense that I think this offense, when they're in rhythm, maybe even tempo, where they can still run the ball in tempo.
Oh, thank you for bringing that up.
But
Nebraska looks so much better on offense running in
right?
tempo.
Yes. Yeah. And yet that's not what there's that physical. You can still be physical in tempo, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can still run the ball in tempo, but there's a sense of urgency. But remember last year, they got everybody so excited. We're bringing back the huddle, man. We're going to do this deliberately.
Well, then that was a Satterfield thing.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So again, disconnect. Matt Rule, I still believe, is a very, very smart football mind. You're watching this and you're saying, our personnel allows us to do X. Marcus Satterfield would agree. You get to the game, though, all of a sudden they're doing Z.
Mm-hmm.
That's on the head coach, too. Mm-hmm. That is on the head coach, too.
Yeah, Rule doesn't strike me as a panic guy, but he does strike me as if something needs to be done. What if his quarterback says something needs to be done? Are we ready to have that conversation? Are we ready to have that conversation?
Absolutely. Everything. Because we should have a conversation about all of that.
This offense right now is pretty easy to scheme against.
Mm-hmm.
Tying this into comparisons of the Big Ten. So Indiana's probably the fourth best team in the Big Ten right now, right?
Yeah.
Illinois would be the fifth.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, Michigan might not make it to 6 wins.
No. They're broke.
Illinois goes to number 1, Oregon. Illinois dominated the line of scrimmage. If I look at Indiana's offense and I look at Illinois' offense and I look at Illinois' roster, I think Rule doesn't want to do what Cignetti did, and he doesn't have that ability to do that with the first year and a super influx of players.
Right.
Rule wants to be Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
How Bielema has built his roster with dropping in portal guys, staying with high school guys.
Yep.
But I think Rule also wants to be Illinois' offense, where maybe Satterfield would like to be Indiana's offense. Okay?
That's a good point.
But again, it's sometimes tough to grade personnel because is the scheme putting them in bad positions? I don't necessarily think that way this year. I think we already have a pretty good mindset of Nebraska's 2 top wide receivers. Hello. I mean, come on now.
You were asking last week. You're knocking on the door of Naor. Where's 18 been?
Well, where is 4?
True.
Nebraska.
Here he is.
Let's bring them all into the. Let's bring them all into the box.
Here they are, missing a block.
Nebraska's wide receivers were 4 for 46, and there is no trust from the OC because if you look at the second half, Nebraska's depth down the field. Again, they like to throw to the sidelines instead of vertical, and maybe it's a little bit of you see something that the defense has given you, but you still have wide receivers that you can think can stretch the field. Now they can't get off the line of scrimmage, they can't win man coverage, and all of a sudden it just throws a wrench into what Dylan is doing. But you were throwing more in the second half to your running backs, and you didn't go much more than 6 yards down the field. I think the average length of depth on throws for Dylan Saturday was not even 5 yards. So stuff behind the line of scrimmage, which Satterfield likes. But they weren't even like saying, hey, let's get the ball to the wide receivers down the field. So we already know about the current group of wide receivers. So you can say, man, is it tough to really get a handle on the personnel because we don't know what's being called and what the scheme is. But we shouldn't be having that discussion. No. It should just be, you're out there balling, okay? You're just playing, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But again, back to everybody wants a pound of flesh, and they've got to do something with offense because offense it's all over the map. And you got to score points. You have an offense right now that can't score points. Matt Rule's not a panic guy, but if something needs to be done, what does he do and when does he do it?
I know everybody has said he won't do anything during the season because he doesn't. And as Jimmy mentioned in the update, as we were talking about, that doesn't help this conversation, is you had 2 head coaches knowing that what is going on the one side of the football isn't good enough. We got to make a change right now. I've always thought, because people always ask the question, what good does it do midway through the season? Well, there's something to be said, in my opinion. You may disagree with this. It may be bigger than the OC, but when you put somebody else either in charge of play calling, maybe it's something as simple as saying, hey, you know what? Glenn Thomas, for instance. Okay, he's a co-OC.
Instead of another voice Monday through Thursday, there's another voice Saturday.
Yeah,
is that
yes? If you go the route that is against what Matt Rule does, you fire an OC, you show accountability. I think it does jolt a group too and say, I'm holding my own guys accountable. You all need to be holding yourself accountable. Now, again, there's limitations of this offense. It's not like that all of a sudden changes this offense into this dynamic group. But what it can do is, first of all, it gives different perspective. A new play caller can see things differently. We've seen that happen in years past too, where just a new perspective on how they see the game flow. Again, I go back to what is happening during practice when you're diagnosing a game plan to what happens in the actual moment itself, when a defense is saying, okay, here was our game plan. Now this defense is throwing something at us. Can we adjust? Can I adjust my play calling? I haven't seen that. And so whether that's Marcus Satterfield being there on game days or not, having someone that is diagnosing a defense, that is seeing things, that's making the calls in real time, as opposed to, okay, this is what we're watching on film, this is what we're going to plan for the upcoming Saturday, could be, I think, an actual benefit. But I think what it can do is it can ignite a group. It can ignite an offense. Again, I'm not trying to suggest that all of a sudden this offense starts putting up 40 points, but at this point, maybe there's somebody else on that staff that can find some type of identity. Now, that identity doesn't have to be, again, the offense that you want it to be in a year or two, but can't you at least look at this offense and try to get the most out of it? Because think about the touchdown drive. What aided that touchdown drive? A defensive pass interference. Otherwise, who knows if they get there? They could have got skunked in this game. So one of the most effective plays all season long for this offense is the DPI. That's their explosive play right now. And you're telling me that that's the limitation of this offense? That's unacceptable. That's absolutely unacceptable.
Old man Doug says hope is not a strategy. Tired of hearing hope. There is too much invested in Nebraska to keep hoping. Chris, Buckeye Jim writes in, into the Equitable Bank inbox. Although we now live in Kansas City, I remain a big fan of 1620 in your show. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks.
My son, a UNL grad, bought us tickets for next week's game in the Horseshoe. We were counting on a battle of the undefeateds. The fantasy has now vanished. I've forbidden him, of course, to wear any Husker gear. Only scarlet and gray attire is permitted in such a sacred spot.
Could you wear black?
Jeez, Jim.
Well, but he's a Ohio
Yeah,
State
I
fan.
know.
Plus, I don't want to appear in any fan fight YouTube videos.
Well, it's not so
I
far.
had to defend him. I did not hear any fan fights from Bloomington, but the Indiana fans did drink the stadium out of beer. In any event, there will be at least one loyal UNL fan at the game. And even I might secretly root against my beloved home team just this one time. Best regards to both of you.
Wow. Jim, by the way, who always good to hear from him.
My curiosity is very high for this game against Ohio State. I will watch. Not because it's our job, but I will watch
because it's football.
Because let's be honest, okay? Where Nebraska football is right now, I'm not looking at the result.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at the team that'll be hopefully in white and red.
Yep.
I think they will.
They will, yeah.
The Ohio State game.
They'll be white and red.
The Ohio State game may tell you a lot about where Nebraska is through 20 games of the Matt Rule era.
Yep. 20-game mark. And this was the thing that, and I think you guys had to entertain this. And my thought on this particular, the Cignetti versus Rule conversation, which again, you alluded to part of the problem why you can't make that comparison because Matt Rule was coming from the NFL. Kurt Cignetti was coming from a highly successful, although lower level, but a highly successful. And what did you bring up last week, which was a spot on point?
That he's an ass and I would play for him?
And that he's got winners on that team. He's got winners on that team.
They have more people on that roster that have had success than Nebraska.
At the collegiate level, too. It's one thing to have it at the high school level, but at the collegiate level, too. But what I would also say is it's an easier pill to swallow when you watch a Kurt Cignetti team out of year one looking like a really solid team, a very good team, as opposed to a team in year two that is inching their way closer to getting to where they want to be. If you can point to the progress and say, look, we understand that first year 5 and 7 is what it is, but I get it. They're coming out of the gate looking great, but they had their situation. If you could at least point to Nebraska and say, look at where this is improving, though. You can see this on 3 levels where this is getting better. It's not the finished product, but as long as it's moving forward, you can accept that slower build, that the slow cooker recipe, if you want to call it that. Saturday was a major sledgehammer to that conversation, to that narrative. That's why I understand why people see the Cignetti thing and get pissed off, even though it's not fair to compare the two because of the situation they're coming from. But after 19 games, where's the improvement? Where do you say they're there? They're getting there.
The total is 48.5, according to Vegas, for the Nebraska-Ohio State game. The line is 25.5. The total is 48.5.
They're not really counting on Nebraska to add a lot to that point department.
All right, quick break. We'll come back top of the hour. Ben Audi will join us from the BA Coaches Show with, I'm sure, a thought or 2 or 3 on what he saw on Saturday and what can be fixed or at least covered up in the meantime in the final 5 games of the season, as Matt Rule will have another chance to make Nebraska bowl eligible. He's 0 for 5. It's Mornings with Sharp and Handley at 1620 The Zone.
It is the greatest time, the greatest sports month of the year with Underdog Fantasy. You can get in with over 1 million fans across 33 states that got in the game last year by making picks on Underdog. You can win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on your favorite players, or just any players. Just whoever will win you money, they'll be your favorite players with their stats. Making picks on Underdog is straightforward, and signing up is even easier, even so easy that I can do it. And I won money last night. Shout out Dodgers. Just head over to Underdog. Simple to use mobile app or UnderdogFantasy.com. Sign up with promo code ZONE, and Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em. Entry plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code ZONE to claim your new customer special, a free pick and your deposit offer. Must be 19 plus in Nebraska and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org.
Hey, Jimmy, you'll get this reference. So late last night, the corny, I guess, cheesy Russell Wilson won a football game.
Nice shoes, though, by the way. I'll give him that. That's about all I got.
Boy, Mike Tirico, who speaking of Mike Tirico, I found the Mike Tirico of analysts yesterday. Tom Brady.
Dude,
He's pretty good.
So Brady did the Chiefs and Niners game.
It's an enjoyable watch.
So he's the Mike Tirico of the analysts. You know, because Mike Tirico, pro, not going to say anything that riles anybody up.
Right.
Pro's pro.
But last night, their storyline was to tell you that Russell Wilson is still good. So because they put up the graphic, he started 1 for 1 and then was 1 for 7. And they made a big deal about his 2 completions. And I'm like, But Pittsburgh defensively, they found a way to win, and Pittsburgh won that game. So the Jets are 2-5, and they get everything they deserve. It was embarrassing. They were flat. Aaron Rodgers was
old.
The good Aaron Rodgers, and then there was the 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers. Do you
Seen
think
that in every game?
So this is my reference that Jimmy will get. Do you think it's he's signed up for Aftermash?
Aftermash?
So, MASH after its great thing, they had a spinoff.
I didn't even know they had a spinoff.
Yeah, they had a spinoff.
Yeah. Wow.
There you go. There's my
Joni Loves Chachi.
There's my
Three's a Crowd.
There's my early 1980s reference for the show today.
Golden Girls had
you could have taken it back a little bit more modern with Fuller House.
Golden Girls had a spinoff called Golden Palace.
I think I watched one episode of Fuller House. It was really, really bad. And I was a big fan of Full House, the OG Full House.
They went all in on the cheese. I'll give them that. They know what they were.
As far as
great reference, I got you. I like that.
They're 2-5.
Yeah, I had no idea that was even they did a spinoff of MASH.
They lost to a quarterback last night was throwing balls into the dirt.
That doesn't play for the Pirates.
But
gosh darn, he was happy. He had a good smile on his face.
Mike Tomlin, you're good for another week. I mean, they're what, 5-2?
Yeah,
just like Nebraska, Vanderbilt, and Alabama.
Yeah, it's good company.
Also, one other observation from the weekend. I've got many observations. And Jacob Bigalow was actually at the Iowa State Central Florida game in Ames on Saturday night. And the dream is alive. Could the Big 12, by the way, could the Big 12 and the ACC both get 2 teams in?
No.
You don't think so? Miami, Clemson, BYU, Iowa State / K-State? Okay. You're the Big 12 expert on the show.
Yeah.
It's a good question because isn't the conference that's supposed to gobble up the multiple bids is the Big Ten. So you've got obviously Oregon and Ohio State. The Indiana part of this equation is very, very interesting right now because of not only how they looked, but other than Ohio State on the schedule. Now,
Penn State's still very much in that conversation.
But
their great offensive coordinator.
Yeah. And obviously there's some, I wouldn't call them elimination games, but you have the rubber meeting the road type games between some of those teams. But if Indiana runs the table and maybe they fall to Ohio State, are they the reason that the Big 12 or the ACC doesn't get multiple teams in right now? Because I think a lot of it, I think Indiana is a very, very interesting X factor right now on the Big 10, and especially on how they looked, where we wanted to know, good team, can they be great? They look great.
This was on more than one season, by the way. September 26, 1983 to May 31st, 1985.
Aaron Rodgers is playing after MASH right now as the quarterback of the Jets. But back to Iowa State. Is there any other program in the country? And I'm saying this on the heels of Iowa State showing off. So the dribbling Cy is back at Iowa State. Is there any other football program in America that refuses to wear their school-issued colors than Iowa State?
Yeah.
Seems like every time I watch Iowa State, they're in all black.
I like the All Blacks, by the way.
I like them, but
I have no idea who they
with you.
are.
It's a good look.
It's cardinal and gold.
I like the cardinal and gold.
I mean,
bring back the Jim Kreiner different-looking helmet.
Dribbling side, though. Yes.
But Iowa State refuses to wear their school colors in football.
Remember when they did have they had the dark blue involved at one point?
Yeah.
Yes.
That was awful, by the way. Didn't Kansas do dark blue?
They've done everything.
But they did dark blue for a while.
They were sharp. Yeah, when I was in school.
Who was the dude that was number 4?
Mark Mangino.
But like Whittemore? Wasn't there a
Bill Whittemore.
Bill.
Yeah.
Bill Whittemore.
Got beaten out by Jason White for the 03 Heisman.
Oh, he did. He was a Heisman. I don't remember.
No, there's so much sarcasm
okay.
here.
I was like, I don't remember him being a Heisman
I know.
finalist. Although Jason White was one of the most exciting Heisman Trophy winners that we've ever seen. They might as well throw in Nate Hibble as well. But
Dennis
yes, I do remember
just
Kansas
got
wearing dark
PTSD
blue
from
too.
hearing that name.
Iowa State's fine. Their color scheme's fine though. I like when they do the all blacks and they kind of have
but
the
it seems like
matted
they do it
helmet
every
look,
game
too.
now.
Yeah, they do it. They do it. Seems
Big
like
games.
every game they play.
It's fun. That's an attitude, man.
Well,
That's
they're unbeaten.
Exactly.
We talked about that
Friday. They got some help from maybe a pass interference late in the game and a false start. But you know what? That's college football officiating. So things are good in Ames. Things are not good in Iowa City. Michigan State doesn't punt. Iowa's now 4-3, and they've got to make a quarterback change.
Well, in Michigan State, completely out Hawkeyed the Hawkeyes too. Like that was the most Iowa way to win is what Michigan State did.
Let's get to some emails here before we get to the top of the hour with Ben Audi. Mike writes into the Equitable Bank inbox, I'm 100% convinced this football program is dead and over, as fans may have well had a funeral for the Nebraska football program. It doesn't matter what coach Nebraska gets or five-star players they get. Nothing is going to happen to turn this program around. Every other college football program at some point over the last 20 years has got it figured out. Nebraska still hasn't. Play taps and let's end this for good. That is from Mike.
Or cancel
shut
the program?
down the program?
Cancel the eliminating the program?
I like Nebraska football.
Bruce writes in.
They call me Bruce.
About Dylan. So legit question. Who else besides my wife and I that truly believes Dylan will enter the transfer portal and go to Georgia next year? Thank God we have Danny K.
I
shout out Danny K.
Don't think that is happening. Somebody else asked me that, I think during the Purdue game. I was watching some buddies and they're like, so Dylan's going to, oh no, never mind. It wasn't him. It was somebody else that you know of. I won't name names on the air, but said, well, I was speaking about Dylan Raiola in a very positive way. He said, well, it doesn't matter because he's not going to be here next year anyway, because he's going to be in the transfer portal. Nebraska can't keep people. I'm like, there's a little different set of circumstances for young Dylan than maybe your typical five-star that maybe starts balling out at one point and you're thinking, hey, could there be better opportunities for me? There's some other things that are family related that I would think make that a little bit more difficult, but maybe that's me. Maybe that's just naive Nick and not looking at the big picture of college athletics where anything is up for grabs.
I think I responded to somebody on Saturday. I said, right now I'd say no, but you never know. But I'm going to stick with no.
I'm sticking.
I'm going to say that he's going to stick with the N and not become a dog. But we have to have a discussion about Dylan, a serious discussion. Probably save this for when we talk to Mr. Audi. Has Dylan been the same since the overthrow against Illinois?
Not consistently, no. That's a very fair question.
It's a damn good point.
So the offense right now is really disjointed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to throw another thing in there. And he played left tackle. So Mazuka spelled Gatula, and then Mazuka also came in and played a little guard.
Mm-hmm.
And before he got suspended the second time, well, I guess, suspension 2, he was working at left tackle. But has the offense since he was pulled in the Colorado game been completely different?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not just we don't have our best run blocker.
Mm-hmm.
Could it be something else? Because he got pulled in the Colorado game. Look at, and I might be reaching here, and I do that, but I'm trying to figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
So Dylan hasn't looked right since he overthrew Lindenmeyer.
Mm-hmm.
And the offense is just completely disjointed where the offensive line is really, now not all of it is the offensive line. There are times where Dylan has held the ball too long and the fact that Dylan cannot get out and run. And Jesus, please, on the run, stop. When you roll left, don't throw the football, please. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Dylan is getting hit a lot more than he did in the first 5 games.
Mm-hmm.
So the last 3 games have been sacked 12 times.
Yep.
First 5, I think he was only sacked twice. But they're out of sync, and Dylan is part of it as well. That he's seeing, there's pressure, and he's not handling it right.
Right.
But it also, I think, it's not just 15. it's 18, it's 4, it's 24, it's usage, it's running backs. It's just the offense is just out of complete kilter right now. But I'm thinking, wow, did something happen in the Colorado game? And then with the quarterback and not wanting to make a mistake or, God dang it, overthrow against Illinois in the end zone that essentially would have won that game. Just there has been something off since then.
True. And
because I want you to know that, I wrote this down. 15 of the 28 completions on Saturday were dump offs.
Yep. And the running back
good.
pass game became a thing. I believe you pointed that out in the first hour. The running game, again, I'm trying not to dwell too much in the Colorado game, but the way that Nebraska had a nice little offensive rhythm with the way that they were running and throwing the football and actually getting some good, solid yards. We're talking, ripping off some 5 to 7, 8-yard carries in the first half. And I don't want to put it all on all of a sudden the second half, everything just went completely out the window because there were still some big plays that were negated by penalties. Now they were penalties though. So some were. That you had that take away what could have been a little bit more of a productive second half. But to your point about Dylan, and this is where I think it's a receiver thing. I don't want to completely, just like I don't want to make Tony White blameless in what happened. I don't want to make Dylan Raiola blameless in this because your instincts have got to remain true, even if you're either seeing ghosts or you're feeling a little bit more pressure. There was a couple throws against UTEP, neither one of them of which were touchdown passes, that to me said, now that's different. You had a wide receiver, whether it was Naor or Banks, Jalen Lloyd or whoever, before they were even breaking out of their route, the ball was delivered. And there was the confidence that as soon as he was breaking off his route, there was going to be that separation between wide receiver and DB. That confidence was there. Fast forward to this game on Saturday, you would see similar routes where receiver was getting ready to, again, whether he was going to break out or break in, that Dylan was still holding the football. And he had time in a couple of these occasions too. To me, that says lack of confidence that my guy, once he does break in or out, is going to have that separation with the DB. So to me, that is more of the chemistry that you felt like you had early with your wide receivers. Is there a little bit of doubt that those guys can execute that pattern where I want to anticipate and I want to throw it on time, but I got to make sure you're going to have that separation. Otherwise, that's a pick.
When we come back, Joel has a email about the layers of the wide receivers that we'll touch on. Ben Audi in the next hour, Evan Bland, Jacob Bigalow, all to stop by on a Monday after an overreaction Monday. Or is this a real reaction Monday?
I think real reaction.
I don't think there's any overreaction about
The
this.
commenters have been great.
For the most
Great
part.
conversation. Yeah.
Nebraska, Ohio State, 11 a.m. on Saturday. Before we get there, 2 NFL games tonight. You get ESPN Plus has the Chargers and the Cardinals, and then the Ravens and the Bucks. That actually should be a pretty good game.
Yeah.
All right, we're back with more after this in 1620 The Zone. Could be having a worse day. One of Deshaun Watson's teammates referred to him as a model citizen. Cleveland fans,
He's a hell of a guy.
Hey, Cleveland fans, you suck. You booed the guy.
Yep.
Okay, but you're going to get your wish. His career is probably over as Deshaun Watson suffered an Achilles injury yesterday. But you can support a teammate, but don't go as far as to say he's a model citizen. He didn't deserve to get booed.
Yes,
Thank you, Myles Garrett. But there's things about Deshaun Watson you just leave alone because they are what they are.
Yeah, you somewhere tread in between the extremes of saying a guy that has the off the field issues that Deshaun Watson allegedly had, and the numerous settlements would tell you that there's probably some truth to that he's not a model citizen, but also it's pretty gross when a guy who could have a career ender, you're actually cheering and
it's like Philly fans when Michael
applauding
Irvin was paralyzed.
as if they just scored a game-winning touchdown, that Deshaun Watson is out for the season and maybe a career ender that you're cheering.
The best way to properly handle Deshaun Watson is to say, it's unfortunate for him that he suffered that injury, and Cleveland fans, you do not rock. Joel writes into the Equitable Bank inbox. Good morning, fellas.
Hi, Joel.
I refuse to believe that Banks and Nair simply can't do anything. Sure, they're struggling to win one-on-one and get separation off the line, but there's no way to scheme them open, or why can't they use their big frames to gain leverage? I watch enough football to see less talented wide receivers getting open. The technique, fundamentals, and scheme all seem to be bad, and that is what is unacceptable. I feel the same about the running back room. I'm not going to pretend that Ramir, Emmett, or Dowdell are elite, but they're really so bad they can't get more than 2 yards per carry. I don't buy it. Joel is on the side of what's going on with the wide receiver and running back coach.
Yep. And again, everything is fair to question.
What do you think's going on in the
Saturday.
wide receiver room? Why don't you think that Banks and Nair cannot win off the line of scrimmage battles or have any interest in blocking on the perimeter?
This is where I believe when I hear Matt Rule, and even every now and then when Garrett McGuire talks, that they preach physicality with those guys. But at some point, what my eyes are telling me, between them trying to get off of certain routes, but also the perimeter blocking, that they have no interest whatsoever. I don't think they're physical guys. Plain and simple. I think they're guys that when the ball is thrown.
So what happened to No Block, No Rock? It not only became a very successful podcast, I thought it was going to be a thing.
A mindset.
If that's the case, then Alex Bullock should play a lot.
And by the way, was on the field a few times. As I noticed you mentioned that on Friday and kept my eye on that. But even he had a tough time too in blocking.
I would like this question to be asked to Marcus Satterfield. Is if and I'm trying to look for a reason why here with poor perimeter blocking from your two top wide receivers. If there is something predictable about Nebraska's offense that DBs know when Nebraska is going to run outside, and so they know that they've got to win that battle on not down the field, but at the line of scrimmage with that wide receiver, because they know there's something being tipped off that they can recognize it on pre-snap that Nebraska is going to run to the edge and they're going to have to deal with a wide receiver.
I think it's a fair question, because that anticipation by the DB to where you don't have the element of surprise where you can get physical with them is usually where wide receivers are able to have victory in that moment, at least, and have success in that moment. Predictability in the run game, period, I think is something that I was hoping would be a little bit different this last weekend. So, yeah, I think it's a fair question.
Final email of the hour. This is from Steve. Nice email. Nice email address. To all those myopic Nebraska fans, you are absolutely right. Indiana hasn't played anyone yet.
I understand.
You're supposed to do
that. Yep.
It baffles me how so many fans went into the Indiana matchup thinking Indiana hasn't seen a defense like Nebraska, or they haven't played anybody. Nebraska hasn't played anyone prior to Indiana. We aren't a good football team. Nebraska will maybe win one more game. Luckily, we have UCLA at home.
Who won at Rutgers?
Yeah, UCLA won at Rutgers, and they have the week off.
Yep.
They threw for 388 in that game. I had predicted this team would go 7-5 at best. I don't think they reached 7 now, Gary. Your thoughts? I could go on and on. A lot to dissect later. Thanks. That's from Steve.
I think Jimmy in the stream was saying earlier that he hoped, not you, was hoping that Nebraska would be close, would be competitive in this game. And but if that were the case, then you, myself, and everybody else would bring the narrative of talking about another close game and trying to bring up hope that, okay, see, that was progress. And I think, okay, then the alternative is if they're not competitive in that game, which I have no reason to believe they will be, but if they're not competitive in that game, the alternative is they would have gotten the brakes beaten off them 2 weeks in a row with your best opportunity to become bowl eligible coming into Lincoln, as you said, off of a bye week. Wouldn't feel great about that.
You can lose to Indiana. That's a good football team. You can't lose 56-7.
Yep.
In your 19th game as the head coach, in the things that you've said and done, that you're in a better spot than you were last year. And I do believe that. You can't lose 56-7. Ben Audi will join us next on Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone. All right, we're going to get Ben here in just a second. So we can chat with him. A little behind-the-scenes stuff going on here at the Zone.
Just numbers sometimes.
Yeah. Hey, good luck to everybody in the state softball is in town today out at the beautiful Connie Clausen Field over at UNO. I guess they're telling everybody to stay away from there because there's going to be all kinds of traffic.
Well,
pretty manageable to me.
They know how to drive over at Exarban Village. You know that.
So let's see, 12:30, 3:30, I think 6:30. Our
Are you PAing that, by the way?
No, I'm not.
What?
I don't know why they've never asked me.
Come on.
Yeah, but I'm going there to watch one thing in particular. I mean, I'm excited to watch Abby Baird, who is she's 3-run Ding Dong Johnson for Millard North, and then Alexis Jensen, who's going to Nebraska, who is an absolute banger in the circle. So Gretna Millard North is the A game. DC West and Bishop Newman is the C, and then Beatrice and Hastings, which are combined 3-run Ding Dong Johnson teams. That is the matchups for today. But our own, because he's not being very nice on Twitter today, our own Iowa JD is the home plate umpire for the Millard North Gretna game.
Okay. All right.
So if you're going to the Class A game,
hey now,
you know the drill.
Hey now, why you got to do that to JD?
I mean,
he
is a graduate of Gretna.
Oh,
yeah. I think he's on the Gretna school board too. Which seems really odd that they let him umpire this state softball championship. I kid. He doesn't even live in Nebraska.
Yeah, he's a Card Lake guy.
But enjoy it today. The weather's going to be great for that fabulous event. The weather in Lincoln today, we'll find out. Matt Rule speaks a little bit later this morning. Ben Audi from the BA Coaches Show speaks now. Good Monday morning.
How are you guys doing today?
You know what? Actually, considering everything, not bad.
All right. I like to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, hey,
what's our alternative?
The world didn't end. We move forward. We got to find a solution for what happened on Saturday.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I like your guys' mindset today.
So, is there a solution?
I sure hope so. Right?
Come on, Coach.
Well, let's do this. Let's approach it this way, and then this will lead to some probably pointed questions. How much of Saturday was an Indiana team that is really good, that executed at a high level and scouted Nebraska better than Nebraska scouted themselves, versus Nebraska played extremely poor?
I think it's a combination of both. I think that is probably by far the best game Indiana has played, and I'd say by far the worst game Nebraska has played. I don't want to downplay Indiana and not give them the credit that they deserve, because they did go out and play extremely well. I think they scouted us extremely well, and they were beating us up all game long. I want to give them credit for that. They even brought in a lot of their backup guys, and we're still beating the crap out of us, right? So I want to give them credit, and I don't want to take anything away from that. At the same time, I can't act like that was a good game by Nebraska. That was terrible all the way around, and I love you guys, but I've been dreading the conversation just because I don't really have a ton of words, but we're going to do our best and try and, put into words how bad this was. I don't know. I'm kind of at a loss. I went back and rewatched the game painfully yesterday, and I still am just kind of at a loss, if that makes sense. I don't know. I did not like a lot of what I saw.
You brought up the Indiana scouting Nebraska. One of my biggest gripes was the lack of preparation, at least of what appeared to be a team that was unprepared, which was probably the most disappointing thing out of this entire result. What areas do you think it looked, we know it probably wasn't the case, but it looked like Nebraska was so inept to the point that it looked like where you asked the question, where was the preparation? Which area? Because I know there's a lot to choose from. Which area maybe was the most glaring for you?
The lack of run game after a bye week was extremely disappointing to me. I know Indiana's rush defense has kind of been underrated just from what a lot of the things I'd kind of seen, just because I like to listen to other things. And a lot of people were giving them some credit, but after a bye week, not being able to improve the run game was extremely disappointing to me. And then obviously we just abandoned the run game pretty early and throw the ball 40-something times. I don't think that's our in 2024, that's not going to be Nebraska's recipe to success. So that was my biggest frustration, I think, when I went and rewatched that game again, was our lack of ability to run the ball, and then how quickly we got off our ability to run the ball. I do understand, you trying to throw yourself back into that game, but that's not our recipe for success. And I just wish we would have stuck with that run game a little bit longer.
Why do you think there's a disconnect on what Rule preaches and wants and then what actually happens on Saturday when it comes to the run game?
I don't quite know. And it's been, I don't know. So I have a lot of problems and gripe with our offensive staff right now, if I'm being honest with you. And game day play calling is definitely up there, but I'd say it might not be my biggest gripe, if that makes sense. Just because, I don't know. To answer your question, I know this doesn't answer, but I don't know why there's such a big disconnect. I don't know if it's a disconnect between Satterfield and Rule. I don't know. I don't know if it's just what he's saying publicly isn't what we're actually wanting to see in the games. I don't know, because you're right. Everything that Matt Rule preaches and says that we want to do with the run game is not happening. I'd really like to know, just bluntly here, like, what did that run game study that he said we did, what did that show us, and how did we incorporate that into what happened Saturday? To me, it looked bad. Like, I know he said, we had a big, extensive run game study, and he studied it and how to improve it. I want to know what that was. I know I will never know the answer to that, but if I could, I would really like to know what that study consisted of and how we tried to incorporate that, because it did not work.
All right, so what was your top gripe then?
Okay. To me, it goes
that's not good when somebody goes, okay.
Yeah.
It's like you're supposed to prepare yourself.
Right.
Sit down for this discussion.
I've been chewing on this for a while.
Yeah, to me, it's a lot deeper than play calling, because, yes, I'm not going to come on here and say the play calling was good. But here's my hypothetical question I have to you guys, okay? What plays should you be calling when you have an offensive line that isn't getting a vertical push, not holding in pass pro long enough, your receivers aren't getting any separation, and they're an embarrassment blocking on the perimeter, right? Like, to me, the whole entire offensive, every position group has gotten, it's regressed from game to game since about Colorado or Northern. Like, for the last month, I think every position group on offense has regressed when every other defense in the country is getting better. And that ultimately lands on the offensive staff, the offensive coordinator, and yes, that ends up going to Matt Rule, right? So that's my biggest gripe is, yes, we need to figure out the play calling. But to me, I don't know what plays you should be calling when you have no operation on your team that's working well, if that makes sense.
The question was posed by Gary. I've seen a lot of people discussing this in our stream right now on Zone TV, and that is, why can't receivers get separation? What is the issue going on with wide receivers and basically not being able to get open? And people are bringing up, hey, they were open at their previous stops, Wake Forest and Wyoming, and I guess Texas, very limited. But why is that not happening? Are you seeing anything that would make sense of why this is happening? Why the wide receivers for Nebraska are not finding that separation?
They're just having a hard time seemingly finding the holes in the zone defense is what I've been seeing. And I don't know. It just feels like the explosivity that we saw earlier in the season isn't quite there. I feel like things just aren't quite in sync. I don't think it's a huge thing, because what I thought going in when I was rewatching, I thought it was going to be having a hard time getting off a lot of the press, but I don't think that's, getting jammed at the line. I don't think that's the issue. I don't know. I think part of it is our offensive plays our play calls sometimes are a little bit hit or miss, as sometimes we basically will just send a guy deep, and if that guy's not open, we're hitting the check down. And that's part of it is every defense we're going to face, for the most part, is going to have a deep defender. And it's just not been a good operation all around. I don't know if it's receiver coaching. I mean, I don't want to throw the question out, but like, is it having a 24, 25-year-old receiver coach? I don't know. And it's just the last month we have seen a regression in the receivers. To me, are one of the biggest ones, but I think every single position group on offense has regressed in the last month. And even if they aren't necessarily regressing, I guess, they're staying the same when every other team in the country is getting dramatically better in the month of October. That's been an issue to me.
So tying this in, let's bring Dylan into the conversation, Ben, because 4.25 yards was the amount of depth on throws from Saturday's game. There was a lot of check down. There were a lot of dump offs. There were 28 completions, but there were 44 attempts. They didn't really want to challenge the secondary vertically. They wanted to get the ball to the sideline. Was that more in game plan, you think, against Indiana? Or is this something where, man, the last couple of weeks, the passing game, whether it be the wide receivers, the tight end, the quarterback, offensive line, not being able to run the ball consistently, is just rearing its ugly head? So they're choosing the best option to give Dylan success?
I think, yes, I think we're trying to give Dylan success here. It's just hard when we're not getting that separation down the field. It's just not forcing the ball, because we see what's happening when he is forcing the ball downfield. We're seeing interceptions, right? And I think it's a combination of, I think we didn't want to test them vertically, like you said, Indiana vertically. And then, I don't know, I just see how many times are we dumping the ball off on, second and, 10 or 8 or whatever it is, and only getting a yard or two instead of trying to push the ball. And that, a lot of that is because when they don't have a run game, Indiana is able to just sit back in that zone coverage and play a little bit softer. And then they're able to come up and make tackles. And I do legitimately think a lot of this comes from not having a strong run game, because to me, the best way to showcase the young quarterback's talent isn't throwing the ball 40-something times a game. Yeah. It's having a good run game. So when we are throwing the ball 20 to 25 times a game, we're having more separation. We're holding those linebackers up just a little bit more. We're holding those safeties up a little bit more. To me, that's how you showcase a very, very, very talented young quarterback, not having them throw the ball 40-something times a game. Because also, when you're on the defensive line, when you know that it's pass pro, you know that they're passing all the time. It's 2nd and 9 and they're passing. It's so much easier to beat your one-on-one in offensive line blocking. It's hard to be an offensive lineman and pass block 40-something times a game. So, yes, I'm going to rag on the offensive line a little bit just for not having a great game. But, when you're being asked to pass protect 40-something times a game, that's not a recipe for success either.
Unfortunately, we have to have the same questions, or at least question about the defense. I was hoping going into Saturday that it's a unit that we've trusted, that wouldn't be part of the issue as well. Obviously, that was the case. What can you chalk up to maybe, boy, they just got out schemed, they can correct it and be okay, as opposed to this is just what they are and you're going to have to take the lumps as they come?
I think a lot of what happened is they got hit in the mouth early and they never really quite responded. And I don't know this for sure, but I feel like part of that, I mean, I'm not going to blame the offense, but I think part of that is offense is getting absolutely nothing. And now you're back on the field again after just giving up 3 straight touchdowns, right? And you just keep coming out there. And I don't want to look into it too much, but I was pretty bothered by Jamari Butler's comments after the game I know you guys heard it of, when things aren't going your way, sometimes you hold, it's like, oh man, I don't love hearing that. I really don't love hearing that, especially after hearing Rule after the game kind of say, oh, I didn't think the guys quit. And then you hear what Butler said. That concerned me more after the game. I try not to think too much in the post-game things, because 99% of the time I have the feeling of, hey, what do you want them to say after a game like that? I felt like some of the things that Matt Rule said, I know people are making a big deal, but to me it's a little bit nitpicky, because it's like, all right, what do you want them to say after getting blown out by 49 points, right? But I will say I am very concerned after hearing what Butler had said, and I don't know, I guess maybe that was part of it too, is once things didn't start going their way, it was going bad, and next thing you know, it's 28-7 or whatever. I think maybe they just, had a little bit of quit in them, and that is not something that I am cool with. That is something that I have a big worry about. when it comes to this defense. I was able to chalk it up to, hey, you got hit in the mouth early and then nothing. It was just a bad operation all the way around. But I did not like hearing that. It sounds like there was a little bit of give up in there.
Ben Audi from the BA Coaches Show joining us. I want you to fill in the blank here, sticking with defense. If Nebraska doesn't get pressure on the quarterback, blank happens.
Bad stuff happens. To me, one of the keys to the game, I can't remember if I said it when I was on here last week with you guys or whatever. One of my keys to the game was rattling Indiana early and not letting them get a big lead or not letting them get a lead. It was getting pressure to the quarterback, upsetting Rourke, getting after him quite a bit. And that did not happen. And against good teams hey, we're about to see a really good Ohio State offense. If we want to have any semblance of looking good in that game defensively, we're going to have to get after the quarterback. That's just, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I feel like for a lot of these teams, that's going to be how we're going to have to do it. And again, I'll try and give Indiana some credit. They came out, they schemed us well. They were actually pushing us around quite a bit up front, which I'll be real, I did not see coming. I did not see us getting pushed around the way we did. When they got that first rushing touchdown, I was like, oh, it's bound to happen at some point. No big deal. And then next thing you know, it was a second and a third. And I was like, okay, maybe this is a problem. So yeah, I just think we're going to have to get after the quarterback in the Big Ten if we're going to want to have success with this defense.
I want to ask you this about just the overall philosophy of the roster right now in year two and the importance of, at the very least, getting to a bowl game, but winning games. Is there too much emphasis on the development and not enough on young players that can help you win now needing to be on the field more? Are they caught a little bit too much into what we want the program to be as opposed to what we need it to be for this year, knowing that maybe there are some guys that are redshirting that can help you win right now?
I think that's a very good question. I'm not quite sure, and I'd love to say give it another week just because this is but I fear of what's coming at Ohio State next week. So I'd really like to try and answer that question after maybe UCLA or USC, just because, I don't know, up until this point, I would have said no. Up until a week ago, I would not have thought that was the case. But after a game like that, you certainly have to ask that question, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm sorry I don't have a great answer for you, but I'd like to see a little bit more evidence. Just if we keep melting down like this, I would say 100%. But a week ago, I wouldn't have said that was a yes to that question. So I'm going to try not to overly react, if that makes sense. But I'm open to that possibility.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we'll do this again on Saturday. What do you got going on this week where people can grab your content?
Oh, we're doing the BA Coaches Show.
That did sound odd, yeah. Sorry. Grab your what?
That's going to be coming out first thing tomorrow morning, the BA Coaches Show. We are going to have a wonderful time talking about this game. I have so many great plays to break down of all the great things Nebraska did. I'm obviously joking on that. So it's going to be a good time. I'll be coming out first thing tomorrow morning, and if I can figure out what to write, I'll put out a blog for nbnrpodcast.com. I don't really know what to write after that loss.
Well,
at least you're honest.
Yeah. A lot of people that feel the same way. Ben, as always, we enjoy the conversation. Look forward to that and much more this week, and we'll talk to you next Monday.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Ben.
Should we bring up Harburg?
Everything's fair game.
Yeah.
No, I just brought up Harburg.
Fair game Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Fair game Monday.
Harburg is more effective to Nebraska in the red zone than he is between the 20s, but I'm not going to fight you back that there are places where he could be in the 20s.
Yeah.
Somebody just asked me that about, have you guys talked about Harburg? Nope. So we got till 8:25 before we mentioned it.
Yeah. All about good pace.
But you have to find something. I mean, 3.9 yards per play last two games.
Yeah. And if that involves having to be more dynamic, Jesus, can't even believe I used that word to describe this offense, but having other options when it comes to this offense and being able to move the football via the run game, if Heinrich Harburg gives you that opportunity to do so, I mean, at this point, isn't everything fair game? Isn't any idea? There's no such thing as a bad idea right now.
That's true. Evan Bland is full of them. Hey, by the way, you want some positivity about Nebraska athletics?
Always.
Nebraska volleyball, rolled.
They did.
And Nebraska baseball got a huge flip from Michigan. Well, it sucks to be at Michigan now. They might not win 6 games in football. They just lost Jeter Worthley.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been committed to Michigan for 2 years.
Yep.
And he wakes up the other day and he says, you know what? I'm going to stay home and go play with my brother at Nebraska.
Just crystallized.
Yeah, that's a huge pickup for Nebraska. There you go. There's some positivity on a Monday.
And speaking of Jalen, too, he's looking good.
Yeah.
He's looking good. Yeah. He's got some size on him.
That's good.
Yeah.
Evan Bland has got some size. He's 6'2", 186 on a good day. He'll join us next on 1620 The Zone. All right, it's Ohio State week. Matt Rule, weekly press conference. We'll speak later this morning if they're getting a chance to digest with film and thoughts after what happened on Saturday. Had lots of thoughts right after the game. Evan Bland of the World Herald did as well. He joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, there are quotes after the game, and Rule at times looked shocked, stunned, disappointed, all the emotions you would have after that game. I want to go to another quote where you were in the room when Jamari Butler was up front, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, we've all heard that quote of sometimes plays don't go our way and we kind of get down on ourselves. We've heard that before, but mostly from older guys in the program. And so don't need to hear that. Tony from Pennsylvania writes in, Evan, and I'm curious on how you took the comment. He says, I took Jamari's comments the opposite way. I think he looked pissed that the other defenders started to hang their heads when things went bad. He looked like someone who was trying to call out his upper-class teammates. How did you take that quote from a guy that is a contributor on defense, but also is one of the younger guys and hasn't had 56-7 in his lifetime at Nebraska?
I think I probably took it the way that most people did because he's said something like that before, or that comment has come out before about this idea that when things don't go their way, they kind of hang their heads or they get down on themselves, is I think how it was put previously. And so, they saw that. And I think you kind of had that reflected too from the Indiana side, where one of their players post-game mentioned how Curt Cignetti said, hey, let's get up early on these guys, and they're going to get frustrated, and they're going to kind of get into themselves a little bit, and then we're going to have them right where we want them. And that's how that played out. And so, why is that the case? I mean, it probably starts with just some of the frustrations that those defenders especially have had. I mean, just think about everything that, those fifth and sixth year guys have been through. And, Butler's been there for 4 or 5 years too. So he's had his share of frustrations and things. And so it's like when you're trying to heal from all these scars and you're kind of getting there, and then you have a game like Saturday. And then I think it can kind of just rip things open a little bit. And guys flash back to some of these frustrations of seasons past. And I think it'd be human nature to just kind of wonder, how far have we really come from some of these blowouts or frustrations that we've endured in the past. So I kind of think that's what he was getting at. You zoom out and just look at it from this season. It doesn't make a ton of sense because the defense has been so good and it's, has so much leadership. Like you look at the single digit jersey numbers and the vocal guys on the team. I mean, the majority of them are on that defensive side. So, I think the other thing is some of that was Nebraska beating itself with missed assignments and missed tackling, but some of it was just Indiana was the better team. I mean, the receivers and the offense that they ran and the explosiveness in the running game. So I'm not sure if that's better news or worse news that Indiana played a factor in that, but I think all those things kind of came together in that.
We haven't gotten to this part of it, and we'll have all week to do it, but we only get you this day for the week. You said what you just said there, what you took in from being there in Bloomington and knowing the daunting task that lies ahead of Nebraska. What realistically is best case scenario on Saturday for Nebraska against Ohio State?
Don't get blown out. I think, unfortunately, it kind of reverts back to Ohio State games of the past, where you look at that game on the schedule and you just kind of say, hey, let's not get embarrassed. Let's not get run off the field. And some of what happened Saturday was of Nebraska's own doing. And Matt Rule said as much afterwards. They continued to be aggressive. That led to some of those interceptions. They had the total of 5 turnovers on downs that gave Indiana some short fields. So, if Nebraska wanted to last week, they could have lost by, 35 instead of 49. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure it would have changed the reality of the situation, but I think it would have affected the perception a little bit. 49 points, second biggest loss in the Big Ten era, gets your attention a little bit more than maybe 5 touchdowns. But I think that's where you have to start. I mean, you got to learn from this Indiana game. And what did they exploit? I mean, they exploited the offense's lack of an explosive run game, or really any kind of a run game. They exploited the defense's ability to to tackle. Special teams remained wobbly at best. And so what I was curious about from the Indiana game was like, okay, if the Hoosiers got up big and Nebraska was forced to sort of air it out, what would that look like with the receivers that they have and the quarterback that they have? And I think we saw that it wasn't super explosive. It wasn't super potent. That maybe Nebraska's sort of Minnesota style of running the ball and trying to kill clock and shorten the game, that's probably still the best approach for this team. And so I think you probably got to get back to that against Ohio State. You need your defense to bounce back, maybe force some takeaways. But from what we just saw, I think it's unrealistic to think Nebraska is going to go in there and shock the Buckeyes, like it's 2018 or something like that. But it does seem like if you manage things and you get out of that thing and say, hey, we tried and we lost by 18 points, 20 points, say they cover the spread, then you're, I think, back in a better headspace for this closing run where there's still a lot of opportunity to win games.
There's 3 of the last 5 teams, Evan, are in the top 30 in scoring defense that Nebraska will face. Nebraska's kind of stuck on 7, 14. Maybe they get to 24. Where is the production on this offense going to come from as the defenses get a little bit tougher at the end of the year?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question because if you just kind of go process of elimination, is it going to be the running game? Well, I mean, it really hasn't been to this point unless you're just stubbornly going to stick with it and kind of move slowly and methodically down the field. They don't have a Trey Palmer on this team. You're not going to go over the top and be explosive and find a way to score on a 70-yard deep ball. So you're going to have to, hit your intermediate shots there. I did think the emergence of Thomas Fidone was one of the silver linings of that game, where he had career highs in catches and yards, and he was used, I think, in a way that was appropriate for his skill set. He wasn't he wasn't catching the ball horizontally and trying to make a play. He was using his frame to go up and catch intermediate passes over linebackers, and he was running posts to get free. And I think they need to use that tape of Fidone moving forward, because he can be a weapon. And the fact that he still has no touchdowns to this point is pretty shocking, actually. So I think maybe they found something there. But beyond that, there's not a lot of great answers. I mean, again, I don't think you can rely on these 4 and 5 play drives where a guy breaks 2 tackles and scores. I think you're going to need to convert your third downs. You're going to need to get into third and shorts. You're going to need to, I do think, take up some clock and protect your defense, because it can be an asset when it's not on the field all game or getting burned. So it's not a lot of great answers. I think a lot of this is going to have to come in the off season when they look at scheme and they are able to update personnel through the portal and through the recruiting class. But I just think for now, it's a team that's going to have to put together 8 to 10 to 12 play drives to score points, and they can do it occasionally. And maybe Dylan Raiola continues to grow as a quarterback, and some of that becomes a little smoother. But that's just kind of where they are right now with 5 games left.
Defensively, and you bring up the part about what Nebraska has in front of them offensively, going up against better defenses. Now defensively going up against some better offenses, especially with the wide receiving core. The few times that Nebraska was able to get home, they over pursued Curtis Rourke, and then obviously the backup quarterback didn't really have any issues. That was big in this game, but when you assess this secondary, and given especially the talent that's going to be at the wideout position this week, how would you grade the secondary, corner play, safety play, and just that overall operation, especially with what we saw Indiana just do at ease?
Yeah, I mean, 3 days ago, I really thought that the secondary for Nebraska would be an advantage, or certainly give them a chance against a really deep Indiana receiver set with skill position guys. And there were times in that game where the coverage was pretty good, and Indiana receivers still went up and made the play. And what I was struck by from Indiana's side was just the precision of their routes. I mean, you could tell the timing was spot on between Rourke and his receivers, that they knew when to cut back, that they knew when to high point the ball. And so there were times when Tommy Hill or Marquise Buford were right on their guy, and the timing of the play, like these back shoulder fades and things like that, were just spot on. And so some of that is what they're doing, and the fact that they're a top 15 team that proved themselves, I think, as a CFP contender, especially if Rourke's healthy for the stretch run. But, Nebraska wasn't perfect either. There were some assignments back there where maybe things weren't perfect. They didn't necessarily get beat deep. They just got beat on a lot of these, kind of 15, 20-yard balls against some bigger guys. And so I do think there's still depth there. Tommy Hill's going to have another week to heal up. They still love Bly Hill long term. We'll see if he gets more into the mix. We still saw Sear Wright rotate in there. He had a decent game still. So I think a lot of it was what Indiana did. And unfortunately, if you're evaluating the secondary, like, it's going to be tough again this week because of what Ohio State has. Jeremiah Smith obviously is one of the top receivers nationally, and just the way that the Buckeyes run the ball, pass the ball. Like, they're going to be a team coming off that Oregon game a couple weeks ago that's ready to prove itself, and they don't care. I mean, they're not in it for long drives. They're going to go over the top, and they're going to try to score points and make an impression nationally. So it doesn't get easier for this secondary this week. I do think it's been okay, but we might not see necessarily an improvement from last week, just given the opponent.
So you had the inevitable task of writing about how does Nebraska respond to games like this. So you got to mention Bo's era, Riley's era, Frost's era, and revisit some games that we don't like to talk about. So with that said, you go from Indiana, and then the beast that has been waiting for you is Ohio State. Oh, by the way, coming off a loss. What do you think the Ohio State game will tell you about this team on the heels of the Indiana loss against an opponent that is considered better than the team you just got beat by 7 touchdowns?
I think it's going to reveal the guts of Nebraska. Like, all this talk of chasing 3 and the off-season toughness and these pregame physicality drills. Like, this is a week to me where that needs to show up. And if it doesn't show up, then this is one of those, 45-7 kind of games, I think, that could play out. If it does show up, then, I still don't know that Nebraska is necessarily going to be in contention to win, but I think it can be a close game at the half. I think it can be, in the 31-7, 31-10 type range, where, like, you look at it nationally and you say, okay, that's about right. You don't do the double take and say, whoa, that was a butt whoop in there. I think that's kind of where you are this week, because, like, Nebraska lost so much momentum and goodwill in Bloomington that you don't want that to snowball and to carry forward. And you mentioned the past, Gary. Like, there have been those instances over the years where a big loss turns into 2 or 3, and I think that's what Nebraska needs to really focus on this week. Is, like, don't let Indiana beat you twice. And I do think this is a week where, like, the way Nebraska plays matters. Like, there are some weeks where you just kind of want the result. Like, this is one to me where you got to show that you can bounce back. And you think, a year ago they did, when they got pummeled by Michigan at home. They had that Sunday full contact practice, and then they went undefeated in October. So you have seen instances where they've used those moments to come back. And Nebraska needs to take it that way now. They need to come out pissed and determined and with that chip on their shoulder, and not, woe is us and we're screwed and here we go again. Like, it's all in the mentality, I think. And it does seem like that's been a culture that's been set pretty well by Rule in the last year and a half. But what a shocking game Saturday. Like, that's the other thing, is, to me, this is like, usually you get into Monday and Tuesday after a game and you're looking to the next opponent. To me, this is a week where, like, you need to revisit what just happened more than the next game. Like, to me, that's still way more interesting, is why did what happened happen? It came out of nowhere. Like, I was trying to think in the last 5 to 10 years, like, a more surprising result than what we saw. Like, I thought it could be a fun game, a close game, a competitive game, and it just wasn't. And so, was this a sign of something? Is this a red flag or an exposure moment? Or was this just one of those weird days where people underestimated Indiana and things got away? So the Ohio State game is going to be the next sort of clue to that end, and it's going to be really interesting to see how they handle it.
Real quickly, Evan, with all of this that we've seen now in 7 games, and given the schedule they have in front of them, everybody wants to talk about what the ceiling can be. What's the floor? What's your overall concern of the floor of this team right now? And how much has that maybe changed from the beginning of the season to after seeing what happened Saturday?
Yeah, it does change. I mean, the floor is they lose out and they go 5-7 again. Like, I mean, you look at the Ohio State game, say they lose that, they're 5-3 into November, just like a year ago. And you still have Wisconsin and Iowa on there. UCLA is looking a little bit better all of a sudden with their win over Rutgers. USC, for all of its quirkiness and blown leads late, like they're still really tough at home. That's not going to be a given. So I do think that's the floor. I mean, you lose out and you're 5-7 again. And, I think the frustrating thing about a loss like this is now you move forward and instead of talking about as much about matchups and, individual sort of points that you look at in the game, we're reverting back to scheme and like, is this the right scheme? And what about the play calls? And how about the assistant coaches? And is the culture right? Like, it's the same conversations that we've had for a long time. And that's unfortunate. Yeah. But that's what happens when you lose a game by that margin is it forces all that stuff back into question. So you just hope if you're the players and you're the coaches, like as Rule said, you're going to show up and play the games for what they are. You hope that momentum doesn't carry over. So I guess we'll see. I still think, Nebraska, like the big parallel to me is the 2016 game where they got blown out 62-3 by Ohio State. That was also a second-year coach with momentum in his second year, and they bounced back and they won their next 2 games. So, something along those lines. Get to a bowl game. Figure things out in the off season. You have in this era, it's easy to change things up. Just ask Indiana. And you go from there. But yeah, that's the floor. I think at this point that brings that into play is, how are you going to score? Can the defense figure itself out?
Evan, thank you very much for putting this all in perspective. Appreciate it. Glad you made it back from Bloomington and look forward to the coverage of today in Lincoln.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
It's Evan Bland from the Omaha World Herald. All right, Nick, you shook the people from the rafters on Friday. So are you still, because I thought about it a lot, and especially now, I mean, I'm very curious to watch Ohio State. I'm not dreading it. I'm just curious to watch the game. But you said that you felt like if they lost a game, and at that time we were not thinking 56-7.
No.
That if they lost the game, they would crater. Are you still thinking that way?
Yeah, I'm worried about that big time. And that's why I don't even want to get into the conversation of what is the ceiling. Because if you ask me right now, if you said, are they closer to going 7-5 as opposed to 5-7? I still don't see a world, and I know it's crazy to say this, with how they looked on Saturday, that this team still doesn't get bowl eligible. So I'm inclined to say they're closer to 7-5 than 5-7. But that type of loss plays right into what you're saying about the response this week. Plays absolutely in the response that, and I think Evan brings up a good point of the second year with Riley. That can you just make that, okay, it was a bad day, it was a bad matchup. There are a lot of things that, given the schedule that we have in front of them, we can play the better matchup more to our advantage if you're Nebraska, as opposed to, oh my God, this is just what we are. We're now on the cusp of, again, finding postseason eligibility, and we can't do it. That type of loss was jarring. Mm-hmm. And yeah, the fact that you said this earlier, the fact that they got punched in the mouth earlier and there was zero response, even I didn't think that was happening.
Evan did say one thing that in the last hour, he used a phrase that, because we're all searching for answers. There is the truth that Nebraska might just be who they are. Or they might be an enigma and you're like, man, they should be better than that. They shouldn't be getting beat by 49. You might have to embrace that you are who you are. Mm-hmm. But he said something that now I'm connecting to something that Rule said earlier in the week. If Rule thought this, we'll save that for the last hour because I wrote that down after Evan used a phrase. Jacob Bigalow is still to come after the top of the hour and the last hour. This Monday show where, how about that World Series? Do you
It'll be good. It'll be a banger.
Do you think Soto will get $700 million? Do you think he's worth it compared to Ohtani?
Hell, I'd pay him. I mean,
Game one
he
leads
did
into
stuff to my team though.
Do you
Game
think
one leads into Rutgers USC.
Do you think the Mets now will pay him?
Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to make sure this was not all another 4 hours of Big Red overreaction because I did 3 on Saturday.
We're breaking it up nicely.
There we
Yeah,
go.
I like that. I like that.
We will talk some basketball with Basketball Bigalow. That's coming up in a little bit on 1620 The Zone. All right, poll question. Is Lincoln Riley just Billy Napier when he doesn't have a first-round transfer quarterback?
Yeah. I would say yes.
Billy got himself a win.
Hey, how things have changed on well, okay, let's say Nebraska hasn't changed. Nebraska still is who Nebraska is. And you have Ohio State aside. Let's look to November. UCLA, USC, who Lincoln Riley's now 5-9 in the last 14. Wisconsin kind of looks like old Wisconsin. That was a nice, just business-like 23-3 win on Saturday in Evanston.
It's very familiar, yes.
And then Iowa what is Iowa playing for? They're now 4-3. Playoff is out. They're going to have to celebrate that Iowa State may be in the playoff, because they're all Iowans. Might make a quarterback change.
All for one.
I mean, just see how it's week to week and things change. Because probably the perception on UCLA playing Nebraska from the UCLA side is a little bit different. But Lincoln Riley, 1-4 in the Big Ten, and it may behoove Nebraska to go out to the Coliseum and trail in the fourth quarter, and that's their best option.
Yep.
Because USC, cannot hold on to leads in the fourth quarter.
Listening to Joel Klatt say, he was going over Nebraska's remaining schedule and said USC, now this is obviously before they lost, USC is the best 3-3 team in the nation. Oh, that sounds familiar. Now are we going to talk about how they're the best 3-4 team in the nation? Because I get his point. I'm not trying to rip on Joel Klatt there. I get his point. There's talent there, but there's a problem.
Who should be under more scrutiny for their job? Lincoln Riley or Mike Norvell? Florida State can't block. They can't catch.
That is a great question.
They're staring 1-11 in the eye.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be generous because they play Miami this weekend. I'm not saying they're going to win. It's not a good look to go from 13-1 to 2-10.
No. And I think of the best season for Lincoln Riley 2 years ago. Got to 11 wins. You're a team that essentially feels like, if you're Florida State, that you got screwed out of the college football playoff, but that's your response. I would still say Norvell because of that reason, but I mean, Lincoln Riley is a close second. A close second. There's not much separation there at all.
Basketball Bigs is coming up next. He has a football take or two. Was in Ames to see Iowa State. He was actually one of the people that ran on the field after the game to celebrate with Rocco Breck.
Easy to get out if you do it that way.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
That's probably true.
Sorry, get out of the back of the end zone there. Or they close that off, I guess. But you can still get out there.
We live in a world where Iowa State could be going to the playoff. Iowa State football.
And Matt Campbell, again, is the talk.
He ain't going nowhere.
No.
He's not done coaching his daughter's softball team. Jacob Bigalow is next on 1620 The Zone. All right, Basketball Bigs joins us. Jacob Bigalow. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. I like the intro song too, so that just upped my mood a little bit. So I'm feeling pretty good for a Monday morning.
Hey, do you have a special ringtone for when Jimmy calls you to get you on every week?
Is it this one?
I don't know. It's yeah. I don't have a special ringtone.
99 Problems.
Oh well, I got those. That's
And a Big
sure.
Saint one.
But no special ringtone. But I mean, hey, I still look forward to this quite a bit. So.
Hey, you were in Ames on Saturday night when Rocco Beck dove into the end zone to seal Iowa State's come-from-behind victory over UCF. How many new baby boys were conceived that will be named Rocco?
I don't know about right then and there. I can't speak for how the rest of the night went in Ames, but I feel like there could be an uptick in the name Rocco in the state of Iowa. We've seen how they're 7-0. If the rest of the season goes the way that it could possibly go, that number is only sure to increase. But that was quite the atmosphere on Saturday night. I definitely was not what I expected to see up close, but they still found a way. So it was pretty cool to witness.
I'm not suggesting you were walking around with a tiny mic, but you're a man of the people. Was there a lot of Iowa State fans with the college football playoff talk going on?
No, not really.
Okay.
Not the ones I was with. They were joking that they have the Belichick on to Cincinnati mantra.
Okay.
One game at a time, one week at a time.
1-0.
Yeah, well, they've got quite a bit of they've got quite a few home games left too, including a big one with K-State in the regular season. So between football being where it's at, preseason top 5 basketball, preseason top 10 women's basketball, it's not a bad time for Iowa State athletics.
Hey, I'm glad that Farmageddon's going to mean something because next year Farmageddon is the Dublin, Ireland game.
They get it.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to be able to switch out some Guinness for some Busch Light to accommodate those two fan bases making the trip over there. They're definitely going to need more beer than they had on hand for when Nebraska was there a couple years ago. That's for sure.
All right, let's talk some Nebraska football here briefly. Evan Bland, who we all know and love, was just on a couple of segments ago, and he was talking about Indiana. And Indiana is the real deal, okay? They have the perfect combo of a coach that's got an attitude that brought players with him, and it's not like it's a gigantic program. They have 52,000 seats. It's perfect for what Signetti could do. So it's a great combo, and best to IU. They're rolling. Have fun with it. I think it's eventually good for the Big Ten if the bottom starts to get more towards the middle. But Evan said the word underestimate. Talking about the defense, that maybe the defense was underestimating off of film how good the Indiana offense was. And then my brain starts to. Do you remember when last week Rule really kind of out of nowhere referred to Indiana as a top 10 team and then doubled down on Thursday and said, this is one of the biggest games we've ever played? Maybe talking to his team, saying, we're playing a really good football team, saying that out loud, and then it happens, and then you're probably not going to say that in the postgame, so you say, I didn't see this coming. Am I way off here, or do you think there might be something to this?
I don't think you're way off. I think there's definitely something. I mean, there's definitely something to it. I mean, I can't speak for what was going on inside those walls, but it was a very, very popular narrative last week that Indiana's offensive statistics are overblown. Like, look who they've played. It's Indiana. They played Northwestern and Maryland, and they're overrated, and they've never seen anything like this vaunted Tony White defense. And on the flip side, if you really wanted to get down to it, you could look at the offenses that Nebraska's defense had faced and made a pretty apt, similar comparison. They weren't exactly taking on world beaters when they were able to shut down Purdue, Rutgers, Northern Iowa, and UTEP. So I think there definitely is there could be something to that, because when you're watching the film and you've got an Indiana logo and Indiana helmets on one side, and Maryland and Northwestern and UCLA and Charlotte on the other side of the film, I could definitely see where that could be an idea that could leak into some guys' head.
So having said that, Viggs, the matchup this weekend will obviously have everybody's attention if that score this last Saturday does not. So your feel for this team after 7 games, that Nebraska, given the proper motivation, proper attention, taking every rep they do serious to know that maybe it can make a difference this week. Do you have confidence that they can have the showing? Again, no one's saying, hey, they're going to win, but they can have a better look this Saturday, or are you more in the camp of what happened Saturday is really going to freak this team out?
I mean, I think it's a possibility for them to have a better showing. I mean, I think I'm unfortunately in a spot where I think that this team has to get rah pumped up to see the best version of themselves. And the best version of themselves that we saw was the snake pit powder keg that was the first half in Lincoln against Colorado. And environment-wise, of surrounding the team and play on the field-wise, we haven't seen anything like that since. And if it can be very, very easy to, build off that and talk a lot about how we feed off, energy and fans and motivation and all that. But you've got to find ways to, make that consistent. And if you can't get off, you can't get out of bed with a little extra juice to go on the road and play the number 16 team in the country at their house, then, I mean, that's pretty eye-opening. And, that game felt like it was over almost before it even started on Saturday.
What if this is the same team that started the year that's getting ready to go to Ohio State on Saturday?
It could. It could be. I'm not. I am not. I don't want to. I'm not looking to make any sweeping declarations. But I mean, I think there are I think there are plenty of possibilities about the mindset of this team, the makeup of it, the way it looks on paper. I mean, there's plenty. I mean, it could very well still be the same team that took the field on August 31st against UTEP. I could definitely buy into that.
This is something that, and I haven't even asked Gary this because I feel like there's so much stuff that we are continuing to sift through from Saturday. But talk about the mindset of this team a lot. And I think when we bring that up, and I won't say we, I know when I bring this up, that typically I'm referring to the guys wearing the helmets. And I usually think the fans are referring to the guys wearing the helmets. I know this time a year ago, Matt Rule didn't really want to have the conversation because he wasn't here on the previous years where Nebraska was losing close games, shooting themselves in the foot. And yet then in the offseason, he did acknowledge that this is a problem that they needed to overcome. Is there a sentiment in your opinion, Jacob, that there is even some of the mindset in the moment wearing headsets?
There could be. I think there's a million different questions. I think one of the things that crossed my mind on Saturday, I didn't watch the entire game because I, hit the road to Ames. But one thing that, how dare I? But one thing that, crossed my mind in the first 2 quarters, Indiana put on a play calling clinic on offense. They put on an absolute clinic. And you can say what you want about their head coach, but there is clearly a mantra from top to bottom. There's a swag to it, but there's also schematic edges to it, and that was exemplified to a T with the way they were calling plays on offense. And you have to find that balance between the swag and the rah and the scheme. You got to have both. You can't be. You can have as fancy a sets as, and not I say sets, basketball brain, look at me. You can have as fancy a plays as you want. You can have as fancy a scheme as you want, as gimmicky or even Mickey Mouse as you want it to be. But there's gotta be a balance there. And when I try to think of who on the Nebraska football staff is the best X's and O's schematic football mind, I have a tough time having a first name pop into my head. And that's just my thought, my thinking is like who on this staff is going to be able to could scheme another team to death if called upon to do so.
It's a valid question. All right, Biggs, let's shift to basketball. Would you like to let everybody in on a big announcement you had this morning?
The episode I dropped today, is that what you're referring to? I've got all sorts of
people. I would say that in your life, because I think I know you pretty well. Interviewing Tate Frazier is second to the announcement this morning.
I didn't know if that had been announced yet.
Well, even if it hasn't, go ahead and announce it.
We hired you?
Well, no. I wish I should have.
Well,
dropped
kind
that
of,
line, but
kind of. You're under the umbrella of NRG Media.
kind of, yeah. We'll be doing a basketball post game YouTube show for some select games coming up this basketball season. It'll be Jack Mitchell, Caleb Henry, and myself. Looking forward to having that going on the Husker Max YouTube page once we get the basketball season rolling. It'll be about a half hour, 25 minutes, half hour after we've got 7 games planned to start the season, and then we'll see where things go after the new year.
All right. So Big Red overreaction goes to the hardwood.
And yeah, in a way, I don't know if we'll be taking calls, but it'll be YouTube. It'll be YouTube. It's a YouTube show, so the comment section will still be very open, and we will encourage people to jump in and and share their thoughts for sure.
All right, congratulations
That's
to
awesome.
you. When you were over in Ames, were people talking about the secret scrimmage earlier in the day between Creighton and Iowa State?
They were, ran into a couple basketball players. Funny enough, so there was plenty of talk about. No, George is everywhere, but I did not run into George. I saw he's a little preoccupied right now with he's got a big day coming up in 2 weeks.
That's
so
right,
no
he's
former
running for
Cyclones,
office.
but ran into some Milan Milicevic, and I forget who the other one was. Walking around, taking in the scene before the game. But it sounds like that was a pretty fun finish at Hilton on Saturday morning, 1-point game, and all three of the guys that'll be the keys for the Jays that big day. So.
So it was kind of from what I understand, what I was told, it was a little bit of a controlled scrimmage. But Kalkbrenner in the flow part of the scrimmage was really good. Ashworth had a good day. Pop Isaacs had 17. But Nebraska went to Salt Lake City to see Craig Smith to ask for some advice. And while they were there, they played a secret scrimmage. The score aside, because we don't know if they stopped the scrimmage and said, hey, well, let's work on some situational stuff here. But it just reiterated, Bryce Williams is a dude that needs more attention outside of the state of Nebraska.
Absolutely. Yeah, he definitely does. He had a pretty good day. By all accounts, from what I've been told, the Nebraska-Utah scrimmage was it was a game. I don't think there was any situationals. They played 2 halves, had officials the whole 9. But Bryce Williams had himself a day. Connor Season had a big second half. But yeah, I definitely agree. Bryce Williams has kind of been a if you know kind of deal with him going into this season. There are people in Big Ten circles that are really high on him, but then he only received 5 votes in the preseason all conference media. I think he's got a chance to be an all league guy by the end of the year, and I think he will probably be near the top of the Big Ten in scoring too.
Was it okay? From what I understand, too, Nebraska did have a couple guys that were not active, right?
Sam Hoiberg was not playing for sure, and then I don't think either of the if either of the true freshmen played, they didn't do anything that I was made aware of. I don't know if it was the similar starting 5 to what we saw from the red team in the inner squad, and then they played 9 guys. So
all right.
And the starting 5 was
Raleigh Worcester, Bryce Williams, Juwan Gary, Berke, Butangel, and Braxton Mia. So it was the red team from the inter-squad scrimmage.
So Esijan, who had 18, is coming off the bench.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And Andrew Morgan was the other first sub off the bench?
Yes, indeed. And he was the third leading scorer, I believe. I believe him and Berke were third in scoring. We had Sejan and Morgan were the first couple off bench. So it was Utah's a big team. They're in a weird spot. First year going into the Big 12, they're picked near the bottom of what's going to be, a very tough basketball conference. But they've definitely got some dudes height-wise that was similar to Nebraska in terms of being, big. And then if you're playing for Craig Smith, you're going to play tough. You're going to play physical. But obviously you don't want to, pretend like a result in a closed door scrimmage is the end all be all for the season. But it's new tape to look at. It's new things to learn from. And, now, grabbing 6 days, they're going to play an exhibition in front of fans in Lincoln on Sunday afternoon.
They will. So much for a secret scrimmage. There's a lot of information out there about Utah and Nebraska. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
All right, basketball bigs, congratulations on the stuff you're going to get to do after games this year.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. Kind of turning it up to 11 with me doing stuff for basketball season between the podcast, post-game show, still writing every now and again, and then just gonna be all over the place. So we'll see how tired I am once we get to March or April. But we're definitely.
Why do you always say you're tired? Why do you always say you're tired? You're like 23 years old. You always say you're tired.
He makes me look strong.
I wish I was 23 years old again. I would feel young. I would feel young if I was 23. But no, I do it to myself. I do a lot. I had a long weekend this weekend. I was at a high school game Friday night. I drove to Ames on Saturday and then drove back after the game. And then I had a full day of stuff going on yesterday. So I do it to myself.
That was your mistake driving back from Ames after a night game. Mm-hmm. You should have crashed in Ankeny or Urbandale.
Yeah,
Urbandale for sure.
One of my good friends is in West Des Moines, but he was at home in Omaha this weekend. Otherwise, I would have had a place to crash. So I had to eat it and drive back home. But after how that game ended, I was pretty wired and pretty wide awake. So it worked out.
Good stuff. I appreciate it, my friend. We'll talk to you throughout the week.
Yeah, sounds good. Appreciate you guys like always. Have a good rest of the week.
All right, Hoopheads Unite. That's basketball bigs. Now that we make the transition into a basketball season, which starts 2 weeks from today.
Yeah, Monday, right? Yeah.
Start getting those boards ready.
You ready? Yeah. You got your charts? Your charts? Did I say charts?
It sounded like charts.
Your charts.
That's a weekend thing.
Your charts.
Hold on, I got to look one thing up here.
Hey, by the way, did I hear Omaha Secret Scrimmage won? Did they play Western Illinois?
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
They went to Iowa City and played them.
Good to see them back in action. Western Illinois, that is. I know you miss Macomb.
Man, they play an exhibition game next Tuesday. I guess we're doing that game.
Omaha is?
Yeah.
It's a whole week from tomorrow?
Right, so you have a game a week from tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
The York Dukes, correct?
Yes.
I believe that was part of the PA reads this weekend for hockey was the upcoming games, and I do remember a men's basketball game being on there.
So York charts you talk about now need to be sped up for next week.
Get those charts in order.
All right.
Did that just get your attention? Like,
no,
damn.
I knew there was. I didn't know if it was.
It's just sneaking up on you. That's what it is.
Because I'm still in football mode.
You should be.
I mean, I'm still watching videos of Scott students running on the field after they broke Bennington's 46-game winning streak the other night.
Game.
Yeah.
Whew, how was the coffee club on Saturday morning in Bennington?
Bennington was a little somber over the weekend too, and then I took in a youth football game yesterday where Westside got the better of Bennington. So
Westside Thursday night goes for their 29th in a row.
Yeah,
a lot of L's this weekend in Handley land.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I rooted for you this weekend. I really am.
Could I suggest a team to root for on Saturday?
I was even pulling for the Vikings because I had I had a few shekels on the Vikings, and that didn't work out either. So if I rooted for you this weekend, I'm really sorry because I'm pretty sure I did not get one victory at all.
You might have had like the Lynx last night in the WNBA final.
Yeah, I was pulling for Minnesota too.
By the way, that was a Christ level awful basketball game.
Yep. Actually, no, the W I didn't didn't have any money or in any pool of this team, but I was happy to see the Jets get what I just want to see them get all week.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm happy that Sabrina got a championship.
All year, the Jets. Yeah. Well, you put it best. Aaron Rodgers looking like old Aaron and new Aaron. And
no. Aftermath.
He's on Aftermath.
The Aftermath. I like that. He's the Aftermath. And even if it is to the tune of Russell Wilson smiling during a press conference, like, hey, yeah, it was bad early, but man, I got it going. It's sweet, man. Football's awesome. You guys are great too, by the way. Thanks for being here.
Sound like
Steelers
Bobcat
country. Let's
Goldberg.
ride. Actually, kind of went into Beetlejuice a little bit there too. Great open, by the way, Saturday night. With Michael Keaton.
Should have watched
Mikey
that
Day
TCU,
and
Utah.
Andy Samberg coming up dressed as Beetlejuice, and they sounded exactly like the Beetlejuice character. It's fantastic. If you haven't seen it, it's awesome.
Well, I just saw from because I was watching football. I just saw the cold open with Alec Baldwin was back as Brett Baer. He actually looked pretty good. I mean,
that was pretty funny too.
All right, quick break. We'll come back. Crossover is coming up here in a little bit. Try and finish up with some emails and some tweets because y'all have had stuff to talk about today surrounding what happened on Saturday in Bloomington.
It's a record on the stream.
Yeah, it's it's an extension of Big Red overreaction.
Mm-hmm.
People care. Matt Rule speaks later this morning. If you care about that as well, in 1620 The Zone.
Hey, join the VIP club. Sign up for 1620 the email, and you'll be the first to know all the exciting content that's happening on 1620 The Zone, including sports, news, contest promotions, and more. Sign up at 1620thezone.com today. Also, don't forget, with Creighton men's basketball season kicking off, 15th ranked Jays take on 14th ranked Purdue in an exhibition game Saturday. That's this Saturday, October 26th at the CHI Health Center. Listen all week to the Connor Happer Show to win a 4-pack of tickets into the game.
Hey, you know what I'd like to see this week?
What?
Whether it comes to fruition or not, I'd like to see that the mayor of Omaha reached out to the Tampa Bay Rays, offering the downtown Day Trader Ballpark as a viable option for the Rays to spend a little time.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's real or not, if there's any possibility, I would just like to see that.
Go.
I mean, the mayor's office would like to, let's reach out to the Rays and give them an option, even though the Rays are looking not very far away in Orlando. And if they are going to go to a minor league stadium, it might be where their AAA team is in Durham.
Mm-hmm.
But we may have, at the beginning of next year, 2 Major League Baseball teams that start in minor league ballparks.
Oh, I thought you meant here.
Well,
we'll take them both.
I think you wouldn't consider.
Oh, you mean the Rays and the A's?
Yeah, Rays and the A's just coming down here.
Why does every time there is a team that is displaced that we got to say, well, they need to come to Omaha? Every time.
We're a community of 1 million. We almost got an NHL team in a huge arena out in Gretna.
25,000.
People are disappointed. There was a website created. There was a message board. People were ready to buy gear, and then it didn't happen. People this day are just ticked off.
We were going to name.
We didn't even know what it was going to be called.
Hey,
we didn't even know the colors of the team.
What happened to Big Ten Landing?
Yeah, Big Ten Landing. Really nothing. Crickets from that. And I thought that they would remember the Big Ten Media Days and basketball came and went. We thought maybe there'd be a big announcement then from Tony Petitti. Haven't heard anything. Somebody on Saturday, I got to tell you the story off the air too. Part of it said, "So have you heard the rumors?" I'm like, "What's that?" And they're like, "Well, the Tampa Bay is looking at Omaha, and there's a good possibility." I'm like, "No, there's not. Just stop." He goes, "Well, that's what I'm hearing." He goes, I'm pretty connected with the baseball world, and that's what I'm hearing." I'm like, "Just stop.
You should just make up stuff. Stop. The Kings are coming back to Omaha."
It's just really.
So they haven't fully determined how long the Rays will be out of the Trop. That's the thing. And then when they do, if it's short term, they're not going to go very far from home. They have looked at Disney World, which the Braves used to have spring training there until they built their humongous complex in Northport.
Yeah, that would make more sense.
There also are other places in Florida for them to play. But if it's longer than that, then they're probably going to search other areas. But they have not fully determined the viability of the Trop and how quickly. Like, is this going to be like an 8-month thing where they have to redo the roof and some of the support systems? But whether it's real or not, it would be kind of nice for it becomes public that Omaha reached out and they offered the option here.
Just make it up.
Well, yeah, and some mayors, they're very active on social media, that they'll make it public that they did reach out.
Now there are a lot of red tape to go through from territorial rights, like the Storm Chasers have first right of refusal in this area. And the Kansas City Royals would be involved in the discussion as well.
I can see that.
You got the College World Series. You've got the Big Ten baseball tournament. You've got, people that have businesses downtown that would think, hey, man, maybe like for like a couple of Major League Baseball homestands to have a team there. Now, I'm not like this is going to happen, but it would be nice just to have a little public thing of, hey, you know what, the Rays, if you need something, we're here for you. We got an airport. Okay.
It's getting better.
It's a short trip. Now, the only thing that would stand in the way is Major League Baseball was not enamored with their exhibition or their regular season game here.
Right.
They just
you tell me that
they left a lot of because they were here. There's a lot of technology that was left behind that you have to have in-house to put on a Major League game. The lighting was better, but in terms of the relationship between Major League Baseball and Mecca, it was not where, oh man, we got to be back there.
Damn it. Yeah. Can't they work something out with Tal Anderson Field, considering that, the average attendance for a Rays game could
fit anywhere.
They'd be able to accommodate them there. And it's turf. You don't have to worry about the weather conditions.
Except we would go in Omaha.
Can you imagine the radio and TV guys at Tal Anderson? The windows don't open in the press box.
I know why. Why does that happen? Why is that a thing?
So I think they should just, just Mayor Stothard, just reach out to the Rays, make it known that you reached out publicly. That's just an option.
Just tweet at their social media and say, home? Question mark.
And their DM
or temporary home? Question mark. And then we'd know that our mayor is thinking about some new possibilities,
Send them
new
a link to
opportunities.
Omaha
for
Stiley.
the very dedicated and passionate sports fan base that we have here in the city of Omaha, that we would embrace that. Except for maybe some of the people that wouldn't necessarily embrace that are involved in the Royals organization, which would make sense.
Well, they would protect the storm chasers.
Yeah.
As well they should.
Aiden writes into the Equitable Bank inbox, inside zone versus outside zone. What is the reason for the repeated attempts to try and run inside zone? They clearly have to know they cannot run in the middle. At what point do they start trying outside zone with a cutback if holes are open? It's hard to watch. Thank you, Aiden.
When I think about any of the attempts to run the ball, that to consistency and actually being effective. Again, I go back to the Colorado game. I thought you brought up a very interesting point about Mazuka being out, but in the first half, they actually had a flow running the football. Given Colorado's weaknesses in certain areas of their defense, but still, you watch a guy like Ellison on that cutback that he had, the way that they are able to, again, for a team that is very well-rounded offensively like Indiana, there's a lot of things. I get where Aiden's coming from because you see how maybe it's supposed to look when it comes to just having that ability to run the game that sets up a very good passing offense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it really matters, to be honest with you, inside or outside zone. I don't think any of it's working.
Emmett Johnson is the most successful in the outside zone. Now, I don't something or
You
nothing
saw
that
more of him,
he and Dowdell got benched after the fumble. He did come back into the game, but Emmett Johnson received the most work in the second half. Terry writes in, "Hi guys,
hey Terry.
How come we can't have an offense like IU's? It's simple and stresses the weakness of opponents' defenses. You have to have a quarterback that is in that offense. Now, there's another part of Saturday. There's an old man against a young man playing quarterback.
Curtis was, he was all of that.
So, but when you matched up against IU's offense, you look at Nebraska's offense right now, it's so hard to do ABC. Indiana's offense, and they weren't trying anything flashy. They had a little window dressing here and there, but it wasn't like they reinvented the wheel.
Yeah.
It does look like it flows because it ran with tempo. But I'm telling you, did you guys not see when Nebraska runs tempo this season, that offense has a flow to it and it has a swag to it.
They actually run the ball too.
Instead of the plodding nature of some of Nebraska's skill of huddle up, get to the line, snap the ball. When they run with tempo, and they don't start with tempo, it's usually after a positive gain, they will go into a tempo mode.
Yep.
Indiana's offense is all about timing and tempo. Nebraska picks and chooses, but Nebraska's offense looks so hard to run. So there's another part of the bigger element of what you're looking at as the future of this offense. If I'm a recruit and I'm watching on TV and I'm not looking at the logo on the helmet, what offense is more appealing to me?
Yeah, Indiana's, without question. Looks a lot of fun to run. Everybody gets involved. And that was the other thing even going into it when you looked at how many wide receivers, okay, well, this guy's going to be a matchup problem, but look at the distribution with those guys. They're all getting the football. And then you also have, hey, we could get a running back too because they run the football. They do it effectively too. So without question, the Indiana offense, you're thinking, yeah, that looks like a lot of fun. I want to be a part of that.
More with Terry. Agree with BA, focusing some heat on the wide receiver coach. The receivers don't block, and several are close to appearing on a milk carton. And then who will rule choose? A portal threat by Dylan or his good buddy Sat? That's from Terry. Those Illinois helmets were cool. If you saw their throwback game.
And the throwback broadcast.
Good on Illinois. They had a 100th anniversary of their stadium, actually called Memorial Stadium.
$6. Was it $6 hot dogs? I think it was $6 hot dogs.
Well, traditional 1924 prices.
Yeah, I don't think that would be $6.
I know, but no, I think they seriously didn't they dropped the price of their hot dogs.
Wait, that's the drop price for a hot dog?
Wasn't it $2 hot dogs?
There we go. That would make more sense.
$6 seems kind of expensive for a hot dog.
Sounds like Arrowhead.
I agree, but I thought they dropped it to like
bun sold
maybe
separately.
It was, I think it was $4. I think they dropped it to $4, which to me wasn't much of a price drop.
I just pictures the Illinois uniforms I didn't like. Well, I'm not gonna say I didn't like. I was like, but then watching the game,
it looked a lot better.
It actually looked really cool.
Yeah.
They did look like major throwback.
Yeah.
Good on them. They did, unlike Nebraska, Illinois did the tribute to the 100th year of their stadium the right way. Well, Nebraska had blue.
That is true,
Yeah.
yeah. It looked like Shane Falco led Washington Sentinels from the replacements.
Hey, that offense is what
Winners win.
The building of the roster and the offense is what Rule wants.
Well,
You got to win in the line of scrimmage, man. They dominated Michigan in the line of scrimmage. They won the game on the line of scrimmage. And then they have two really good wide receivers, Bryant and Franklin. They have a quarterback that does enough for you. He does more good for you than he's a guy that's going to get us beat.
Yep.
They are without their top running back, but they were still able to run the ball. Why? Because they were good up front on both sides of the ball.
Brett Bielema special.
Well, and another
they
part
looked closer to Michigan than Michigan did.
Yeah.
In that game. What was it? Final 21-7?
And the only redeeming part about Michigan that you believe that they can be in games is because they still have line of scrimmage play and physical nature to them. The fact that Illinois took them right back to them, I think, says a lot. Real quickly, because you were talking about what Illinois does at the quarterback position too. Watching now, mind you, not as many pass attempts as what Curtis Rourke had, but seeing Taven Jackson come in after Rourke leaves with a finger injury and that offense doesn't miss a beat again. I'm not ready to say, boy, they got a great quarterback situation because Taven Jackson is a stud. Well, you're going to see that this weekend when he plays against Washington. But again, it's the system. That system that they have in that you could bring in a backup quarterback with not nearly as many game reps this season in this offense and be able to not miss a beat like that at all. To me, again, goes to the coaching staff, to the system that they have in place. And the most important thing about it, being able to identify people who could effectively run that system on that side of the football. It was, I know a lot of this has been about the Nebraska ailments, but damn, that was, you can't at least come away from that not being impressed by Indiana, thinking they're okay. They're
well
real.
coached.
Yeah.
They're well coached. They make it very simple. They don't complicate things. And Cignetti is in a perfect combo.
Yep.
He walked in the door first year. He's a winner. He brought guys with him, walked into a place that was desperate. It's not a big, huge place. So it's not like they have all this media attention. And now that they are 7-0 and game day is showing up, and now people are like, okay, I get it. Still not in the top 15.
Mm-hmm. Is that more reflective of Nebraska?
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Some people have said in the stream today, Indiana still hasn't played anybody.
Oh, nice. I honestly didn't realize they're getting game day.
Yes, they are. You see that schedule, but you know who's getting Big Noon again. You see that schedule, and then the way that they played out.
Celebrating that.
No. Did you see
the game to bury like it?
They dropped that at
3:15.
I think they dropped it when it was 28-7. Big Noon or Fox did. Like,
well, one thing's for sure
that
about
adds to it.
There's one thing's for sure about this past Saturday. First of all, Nebraska never won a game that Gus Johnson is doing.
God,
what if you and he was Gus-gasm about IU. I mean, right before kickoff.
You think they play football in Bloomington?
If you are on the wrong side of a Gus Johnson game, you absolutely hate him, and you hope that the floor falls out in the press box.
It's hard to listen to.
If you are
really
not on the good side.
Yeah.
If you are the team that's winning and Gus Johnson's doing your game,
you love the shtick.
I mean, you'd like to rub his mustache.
He went without the glasses this time. I'm assuming during the broadcast he put them back on, but
he has trouble seeing.
Yes.
He went to Kugler Vision.
Maybe he's got LASIK now. I don't know, but yeah, the cool Kurt. That even after by the time they got to the second quarter, thank God Curtis Rourke for this standpoint, from this sake, was out of the game because that would have continued in the second half.
They didn't completely crush Nebraska because of Joel Klatt.
No, and
because Klatt likes Rule a lot.
Yeah.
They have a good relationship, and he wasn't. I mean, there's not much more you could say. He wasn't going to. I mean, because it could have been. They could have crushed Nebraska, and they were relatively kind.
They did against Colorado last year.
They made it more about Indiana.
Yeah, they did.
Well, I don't think Klatt. Well, that being a Colorado game, and I don't think Klatt had the kind of relationship he has now with Rule.
Agreed. Yeah.
So watch this. Listen closely, because it is Gus and Joel Klatt again, right?
Yeah.
So listen closely.
Sorry, guys.
You know that Klatt and Rule will talk this week. Be very, very close in listening if Klatt drops some stuff that you go,
Yeah.
And it's not a Joel opinion. It's stuff that Rule has given him. All right. Quick break. Come back and put a wrap on this show. Thanks again to everybody that tuned in on Big Red Overreaction Part 2. We've been on the air since about 2:30 on Saturday.
Yeah, it just keeps going.
That's what happens around here if you're new.
Yeah,
we
you
just
missed the Chiefs game.
Hey, didn't even know what happened. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, you
They're
did.
6-0.
Yeah, it's just so
Pat's run.
It's such a very ho-hum 6-0 too.
You all can hate us because our quarterback has 6 touchdown passes, 8 interceptions, and we are 16-20, the zone.
Where's Thornton Mellon?
A triple Lindy. You want to cut line? Just hold a sign outside that says Bruce Springsteen. Does that still work?
Hey, you know what today is?
Boingo, boingo.
I think this is a good way to wrap up the discussion we've had this morning on the show. I just popped in my head. I don't know why hearing that song. Today,
It's party. I'm really interested where this is going.
Same.
Kind of have an idea, but let's go. I'm all for it.
Today is Back to the Future Day.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
October 21st, 1985.
Yep.
Yeah, Marty McFly travels to the future.
Yes.
Missed game 2 of the World Series between the Royals and Cardinals.
Just the other day, I was driving behind what looked like it could be a truck that was containing manure in the back. And I just wondered if it were to stop short, if someone hit it, would it come flying down like it did on Biff? So, yes.
So October 21st, that's the day.
Yeah. The other day was the anniversary, I don't remember which day, but last week of him winning big thanks to the Gray's Sports Almanac, which was surprisingly small for having 50 years of stuff.
Yeah.
What if today, and since this has been all about Nebraska football this morning, how did we feel about Nebraska football on October 21st, 2015? Let me look here. Let's see if there was a game.
Was that the Purdue game?
That day? No, it was between Minnesota and Northwestern.
Oh. Wait, that was the Minnesota?
It was a weekday. 21st.
It was a weekday, yeah.
It was a Wednesday.
Oh, between. Okay.
I think we were feeling pretty good because Nebraska went and put 48 up on Minnesota.
Yep.
Which
sure did.
Which in the last 6 quarters, Nebraska's put 7 up. Dylan's thrown 4 interceptions, and the offense turned it over 5 times. Okay, so let's talk about 2015 more. That win at Minnesota was in the throes of 3 losses.
Yep.
Illinois, Wisconsin. Oh,
I see what you're doing.
Well, that stretch was you lost 2 games by 3 points,
Mm-hmm.
and then blew out Minnesota, and then lost to Northwestern by 2.
Yep.
Yeah.
But did
That
beat
as well.
Michigan State by 1.
Yes, they did. I was doing hockey that night. And now that game was coming off of the Purdue game. The previous week, we're like, oh my God, the Riker 5 Purdue game in West Lafayette. And then not believing what I was watching. And then, of course, because I had the phone up just like I did on Saturday watching
Some
baseball.
might say that Jamel Hill has had some rough days since then. That might have been one of her rougher days. Big Michigan State fan, got involved with a bunch of Nebraska fans on Twitter, and it was a dumpster fire.
Gotta know better.
Was he in bounds or was he out of bounds? And Nebraska won 39-38.
It didn't matter.
But she introduced herself to Husker Twitter, and Husker Twitter, oh my God.
I do remember that now.
Oh.
Yeah, same.
I got like all of a sudden I was in a car. I'm like, what am I doing?
You were getting tagged.
I didn't do anything.
Why are you involved in a Michigan State discussion?
And honestly,
and she's like, I'm a diehard Michigan State fan, and Nebraska screwed. Nebraska, its game's rigged. Nebraska screwed you over. He was out of bounds. And like people were like, whoa. It was like that was.
We didn't make that call.
That was when Husker Twitter was a little bit more enjoyable.
Yeah.
They're like, get her.
And you know what Nebraska did to follow that game up? They beat Rutgers, put a whooping on them 31-14 if we're going back to the 2015 season.
Well, let's continue,
Yeah.
All right. Tomorrow on the show, Sam McEwen stops by. Talk about his trip to Bloomington, among other things. But Matt Rule speaks later this morning. Can get to digest a little bit more of what happened in Bloomington and now what's ahead for Ohio State. I am in the boat of curiosity. I'm very curious to watch the game. I'm not dreading the game. I'm curious to watch the game. So if you'd like to be curious with us, we do have Big Red Overreaction afterwards.
We do.
Jesus.
There's the proof.
What was I thinking?
Gosh, my beard was darker back then, too.
That's true. Quite a bit darker.
This is what this is doing to me right now. This damn season. Just went gray.
Wow, it was just one game. The sky's not falling. You know what? The sky might be the same color it was before they went to Bloomington.
That's true.
So it's not falling. How can
people forget?
How can it fall? How can it fall if it's the same thing? That's the reality and the truth of Nebraska. That you have to ask the question about Saturday are they the same team that played their Super Bowl in week number 2?
Yeah, but at least in week number 2, in the Super Bowl game that you're labeling that, which is fine. That's what I think is the most frustrating part of it, is that level as to which they played at. And now, given where Colorado is, that they've at least shown they can do that. Where the hell is that on a consistent basis? Do you just need to be needled so much by a team that all of a sudden you just get pissed off? You pull a Trey Palmer, you wake up in the morning, you're pissed off, and that's how you play? Can't you just the 1-0 mantra? Can't that just be the thing?
That's a valid question. Maybe we should ask that to Matt Rule today. Get on the teleconference.
Does anybody do the teleconference part anymore?
I don't know. They used to have it set up where they'd have the speaker next to, and then they go, we're going to take a couple questions now from people on the speaker.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, and the coach would have to lean down and go, excuse me.
People be holding their kid. I think I remember one time Caleb Henry was holding his baby while asking Scott Frost a question. Scott seemed to get a chuckle out of that.
Ooh, you could get Reese to ask a question. That'd be great. That's great content.
Pull him out of Daycare for that. Use him as a prop.
All right. Thank you to everybody that joined us. All the segments are up on the radio replay page. Enjoy those. Share with your friends. Discuss amongst yourselves. Evan Bland, Ben Audi, and Jacob Bigalow for stopping by. We say thanks to them, all of you. We are back in 20 hours. Crossover is coming up next for Jimmy, for Nick. I'm Gary. It's Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone.